Yes. Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome back. We are very excited for this live stream tonight. The president with a national address. Many people saying it's going to involve our elections and just how problematic they actually are. And so we're kicking off here a few minutes early just to do a quick sound check. Help a brother out. Let me know if you can hear me loud and clear because we ported in some other audio that we want to pipe in from all of the cables. We have a little bit of a sound check right here. Let me know if you can hear Karoline Leavitt, who gives us a preview today.
I would encourage everyone to tune in tonight. I've seen a lot of reporting and frankly misreporting about what the president will say. I think the American people will be relieved to hear what they are hearing from the president of the United States and his commitment to transparency and the focus on the integrity of our elections tonight. I think all Republicans and Democrats should recognize this should be a nonpartisan issue. If we don't have safe and secure elections in our country, we cannot have a country. It is a vital part of our democracy, of our constitutional republic. The president will be speaking about that tonight. And in addition, at the very same time, of course, he is working on all of these economic issues that the American people have at home. I just read to you the latest inflation numbers are looking good, the best report in 6 years. The president, Republicans and Democrats and all Americans have this president to thank for the largest tax cuts in American history, which every Democrat on Capitol Hill voted against. You have this president to thank for the Trump accounts for our children and securing the future of the American dream. So this president is doing a lot, but obviously safe and secure elections are a true tenet of our constitutional republic, and the president will be speaking about that tonight.
Heck yeah. Good to see Karoline back. All right, so that is coming in loud and clear. Thank you for that confirmation. And we've also got all the cables here, so let me know if you can hear this baby.
It's the secret. So from now on, whenever I grill dogs, splitting it right down the middle. Time for texts. Christy from West Haven, Utah.
Going on?
It was a great HR lady for years. Everybody loved me. That's what all HR ladies say. You should hear what we say about you behind your back. Patrick from Elon, North Carolina. I wonder what the AC was set to at Rikers. I'm sure they cranked.
All right, so you can hear the cables as well. That's tremendous news because my understanding is not all the cables are going to be containing this speech. You saw what we had here from Scott Nover. He is a reporter over for the Washington Post. He said some of these scumbag media companies like NBC will not take the president's speech live on the network. Isn't that something? Just on streaming channel NBC News Now, it'll air a special report about the remarks on the network following Trump's remarks. And so they're not going to talk about it because it's a little bit too sensitive for them. And so we're waiting for the White House to come out live. You know, sometimes they're a little bit delayed on these things, but here is what it looks like officially from the White House feed. This baby is live. We're roaring and ready to go. There has been some reporting, don't want to have any spoilers here, of course, but some reporting that this may include a big fat number of illegal aliens who are on the voter rolls who should not be on the voter rolls. I think I saw Bill Malugin, who said that it's something like almost 300,000 people who may or may not be on the voter rolls. Let's grab this one because I don't want to miss a thing. Soon as the president comes out, we're going to cut on over to that. But Bill also shared this one just moments ago. He said, I was just briefed on the House. He just posted this one from Bernie Moreno. He said, I was just briefed on the House by the White House on what to expect this evening. This is from Bernie Moreno, who is a senator over from Ohio. And he said, I would encourage every American to tune in tonight to the president's speech. This may be the most important Oval Office address since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Oh my gosh. I know if we don't have elections, we're totally screwed. But I thought I saw, maybe it wasn't from Bill, but I think somebody else said that there were going to be big numbers and big reports. Is he live? Not yet. Let's see. Does Fox have this? The White House feed is not even live. Let's see if Fox has it.
Including criminals of all types.
There it is.
11,888 murders.
We're going to boost that
many
up.
of whom killed more than one person. We had transgender for everybody, men and women sports, crime ravaging our cities, and the whole world was laughing at us as a nation, but not anymore. 2 years ago, our country was dead. Now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world. America is respected like we have never been respected before. We have more money being invested in the United States than at any time in the history of our country. More Americans are working today than ever before. This week it was announced that inflation saw the largest monthly decline in more than 6 years. Just happened. It was just given out. The media reported it, and we accept it. The best in 6 years. The tax cuts in our great, big, beautiful bill are saving hardworking families thousands and thousands of dollars, like with the provisions, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors, along with the interest deduction on a loan used to purchase a car, but only if that car is made in America, and a 100% expensing for our job-creating businesses. Our stock markets are at their highest point in many years, but we can actually say of all time. And your 401ks, pensions, and retirement accounts are setting records every single day, the highest in history. For years, we paid the highest price for prescription drugs anywhere in the world. Now we pay the lowest price under my most favored nation's policy because I was able to get the rest of the world and the pharmaceutical companies to act responsibly. Drug prices are coming down by 70, 80, and 90%. TrumpRx.gov, this will ultimately reduce the cost of health care. You have to go to TrumpRx.gov and take advantage of it. But the cost of health care is coming way down because of what we've done with prescription drugs. And with Trump accounts, every child in America now has access to a tax-free investment account to save for their future. Billions and billions of dollars are being invested, put in by companies and individuals to take care of our children so that at age 18, they will have potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in their account, and they'll get off to a great start in life. So for that, go to TrumpAccounts.gov and sign up your child or any child who'd like to sign up. Our previously wide open borders have been transformed into the most secure borders in the history of our country, with 0 illegal aliens being admitted to the United States in the past 14 months.
Let's
that is
go.
0. Nobody thought it was possible. We had the worst border in the history of our country, and now we have the best. Crime is plummeting nationwide, with the murder rate at its lowest level since 1900, or more than 125 years ago. We're making a record investment in our armed forces, and we have the strongest and most powerful military by far anywhere in the world. I built it during my first term, and unfortunately, we're forced to use it now. We won in Venezuela, which is now working with us to produce millions and millions of barrels of oil. We are likewise winning big in Iran, and you will see the fruits of that labor very, very shortly. America is back and doing really well, but we still have a major challenge that must be urgently addressed, because no country can be great without fair and honest elections. You have to trust your country, because if there can be no trust, there can be no greatness. And that's very simple. No trust, no greatness. For many years, I've called for bold, swift, and decisive action to protect the integrity of America's elections. Every American deserves to know that when they cast their vote, that vote will be counted accurately in a system, and that is to make that system secure, one where cheating and interference are not just difficult, but virtually impossible. Unfortunately, the system we have today falls catastrophically short of that standard. Tonight, I'm announcing the immediate declassification and release of critical intelligence revealing shocking vulnerabilities in our election infrastructure. This evidence shows that the election system we have dangerously exposes and really exposes like levels never thought possible to hacking, exploitation, and foreign interference. Just as disturbingly, this vital information has for many years been covered up and hidden from you, the American people, our beautiful, our great American people. But that all changes right now. The documents we will release starting tonight have been gathered by the White House Government Transparency Task Force, a great group of people, along with the staff of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, supported by our top intelligence agency chiefs, who have all personally reviewed the findings. We are presenting this evening and fully confirmed their authenticity. You can see these documents for yourself at whitehouse.gov. That's whitehouse.gov. Go check it out.
We'll get them.
Our purpose in disclosing this information is not to weaken confidence in election, but to earn that confidence by confronting vulnerabilities and correcting them very, very quickly. And that's what we're doing. The documents cover 5 major areas of concern. First, they show that over a period of years, starting during the 2020 election cycle, the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of election data in history, resulting in China's illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S. voter files. That information includes names, addresses, phone numbers, political party preferences, and other sensitive data that would be needed to register to vote and engage in other nefarious activities, which is exactly what was happening. This data loss presents an unprecedented election security nightmare. The intelligence even shows that China has signed a data exploitation unit specifically to this new project. Compounding the travesty, the second set of documents we are releasing reveals that members of the deep state, very, very famous group of people, many cases, in our intelligence agency work to actively suppress and downplay information about the extent of China's sinister election meddling, covering it up from both the president and the American people like nobody thought was possible. U.S. spy agencies began learning about the compromise of voter registration files in 2020 when they discovered that tens of millions of voter data, think of that, tens of millions of voters' data in 18 states have been bought, stolen, or hacked by China. Yet those responsible for sounding the alarm instead kept the information secret and hidden. They did not disclose to me as president or to anyone else, and to the best of our knowledge, they did not inform Congress. In fact, all they kept saying is, this is the most secure election in the history of our country.
Liars.
A standard, very pat line that was divvied out to say. The cover-up of this colossal security breach is even more disturbing in light of the additional information showing that China engaged in other election-related activities to undermine my first administration and our 2020 campaign. They did not want, and they just didn't want it. They fought like hell not to have it, Donald Trump, to win, and for good reason. As the documents we are releasing show, CIA reporting explicitly stated, and I quote, in mid-2018, the Chinese Communist Party's policy was to leverage all domestic and foreign elements that were opposed to the U.S. president in an effort to reduce the U.S. president's votes and make him resign or prevent his re-election. Isn't that nice? Also, in mid-2018, China was working to influence the results of the U.S. midterm elections and later the results of the 2020 presidential election itself. Separately, in mid-2019, the Chinese government's strategy against the United States was focused on undermining domestic confidence in the U.S. president. They wanted to just make you sound like your president wasn't so hot, when actually your president has done a great job, and they did everything possible to do exactly that. Going on, this document says, and this is by the CIA, the strategy included efforts to use Chinese contacts with big U.S. companies to influence U.S. business leaders to turn against the President of the United States of America. The Chinese government sought to identify U.S. journalists who had reported negatively on the U.S. president and pay them large sums of money to write more negative articles about him, as many as they could, and they didn't care what they said. The Chinese government wanted U.S. president to lose the next election, and the reason they wanted me to lose is because they knew I was wise to them, charged them billions and billions of dollars worth of tariffs, and built the strongest military anywhere in the world. We have the strongest military anywhere in the world. These are exact quotes from the CIA reporting. The name of the person doing the quote is now under review, but it gets even worse. Raw intelligence obtained by the FBI in 2020, yet buried by rogue bureaucrats, stated that China's activities even included an attempt to manufacture illegal ballots for Joe Biden.
Yep.
Documents show that during this period, dozens of significant CIA and NSA reports about China's election targeting were kept out of the presidential briefing. These were briefings I would get almost every day. Everything was kept out that was of importance. One email among intelligence analysts admitted that they had, quote, deliberately massaged the presidential daily briefing to withhold information regarding Chinese activities related to the election. Another official inside the FBI wrote that she was running, quote, a shadow government, unquote, to keep intelligence about China's election meddling from becoming known and to keep it away from the honorable press. Other officials who witnessed such efforts perceived the motivations to be blatantly political. Recently, we found significant numbers of burn bags in formation, and this is a group of bags that were used to destroy information given by President Barack Hussein Obama to be burned. It was supposed to be burned. These bags were supposed to be at a different level by different people, incinerated and checked, but it never happened. Maybe we got lucky. We believe this was not done on purpose, but rather through gross incompetence of the people that were supposed to burn the bags. But the findings are stunning. Today, I'm asking the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the CIA to investigate how and why such crucial information was hidden, to fire those involved in the cover-up, and to file criminal charges, if appropriate, against these people. Yet concealing China's meddling was only the beginning. The third set of documents we are releasing proves that for many years, Americans were blatantly lied to about the security of our election infrastructure, including electronic voting machines and ballot counting systems. Dishonest, almost all. They're vulnerable and they're easily compromised, and people within our government knew that. Tonight, we're publishing a series of previously classified U.S. intelligence community assessments and other reports proving that our government has long known these machines are extremely exposed to attack. As one assessment states, we judge that the United States adversaries, including at a minimum Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, as well as non-state groups, have the capability to compromise U.S. election infrastructure. That's unquote, but that's some statement, isn't it, made by supposedly great patriots of our country. The document goes on to further state that, quote, we assess that centralized election-related data repositories, such as voter registration databases, poll books, and other official election websites, are most vulnerable to exploitation, and adversaries could use this access to these systems to disrupt election processes within the United States of America. Tonight, we're releasing all of those findings, and spanning from January 2020 to June 2026. This is a cyber threat aimed at the very heart of our democracy. Many people have questioned whether it could actually be possible to electronically manipulate vote totals or change election results on these terrible machines. Today, we are releasing documents that show the CIA obtained reporting of a specific plot to do a big number in favor of the corrupt Maduro regime in Venezuela. And that's exactly what happened, conspiring to digitally rig their own country's elections in 2020, and that's what they did. This reporting included precise details about methods to regime develop to digitally alter vote totals in ways that could not be detected even with an audit, no matter how deep they went. This intelligence underscores why we must take urgent action to ensure that our own system can never, ever be hacked or compromised like it was in the past. The fourth set of documents reveals that even when significant evidence of fraud has been detected, it has been buried and covered up. Among the disclosures tonight are FBI files detailing evidence of alleged fraud by a large-scale voter registration operation in Michigan. In 2020, Michigan State Police raided a Democrat Get Out the Vote organization, corrupt group in Muskegon. And we're so concerned by what they found. They were just so concerned, they couldn't believe it, actually, that they contacted the FBI in Detroit. The documents state that some canvassers admitted to FBI agents that they signed voter registration forms in other people's names, submitted fraudulent registration for people who did not exist, and received gift cards tied to their number of applications that they produced. In other words, it was pay, play, and cheat. The FBI agents working on the case believe that crimes were committed, yet the Biden Department of Justice slow-walked the investigation and killed it. Tonight, I'm asking the FBI director to ensure that the matter is fully investigated and to work with the Department of Justice to prosecute those responsible for any crimes. Finally, to reveal just how vulnerable our elections continue to be, we are releasing the results of a stunning investigation by the Department of Homeland Security. According to the DHS review, state voter rolls and public records, they identified approximately 278,000 non-citizens who are registered to vote in federal elections. Since Democrat states refuse to share their voter files, the real number is actually much higher than that. Yet, even this limited analysis found more than 250,000 foreigners illegally registered to vote. Put together, these disclosures reveal an election system so broken and so vulnerable that no one can possibly defend it. It is not defensible. Hundreds of millions of U.S. voter files are in the hands of foreign governments. Our machines and ballot counting systems are exposed to hacking and manipulation and corruption. China and other countries have been trying to meddle in our elections. Evidence of fraud has been buried. Hundreds of thousands of non-citizens and dead people are listed and active on the voter rolls, and yet we still have elections with no voter ID, no proof of citizenship, and tens of millions of ballots floating aimlessly through the mail. As one example of the insanity, California's recent election for mayor of LA and governor was held on June 2nd, long time ago, but it was just completed a few days ago on July 10th. Think of that, much more than 1 month. Took a month to count the votes. I wonder what they were doing. This is worse than any third world country. There's no third world country that has elections like we have. In a rare move, NBC and ABC Fake News have both said that they would not cover this speech. They knew what it was about.
Cowards.
Because of the fact that they don't like the topic, because they know how corrupt our system is, and they don't want to reveal it. They and others in the media are part of a plot. They want to continue this fraud for whatever reason. They want to keep it going. They want to protect the radical left. They can't have a great country, and that's true. You can't have a great country without free and fair elections. Fraud like this should mean a revocation of their licenses. They use our public multi-billion-dollar in value airways for absolutely no money. They pay nothing. All we want is honesty in our elections and honesty in reporting. They pay nothing for multi-billion-dollar assets. Great damage has been done to our country. Our elections were left vulnerable to being rigged and stolen, and the trust of the American people was lost. This cannot be allowed to continue. Every American, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, or otherwise, should be able to agree that we deserve the most secure, honest, and fair election system anywhere in the world. Secure elections should be a partisan, really, we should be together. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, everybody. And it should not be a partisan issue. It should cause to unite us, not to divide us. This should be a cause. We should be united, not divided. In light of the brand new and irrefutable information I have revealed tonight, my administration is in the process of notifying the states whose election data was compromised by the People's Republic of China and many others. We will be working closely to mitigate any harm, and we're taking swift action to ensure that sensitive voter data is better protected so we can never be bought, we can never be hacked, and we can never watch a stolen election again. Tomorrow, the Secretary of Homeland Security will hold a briefing to outline his department's recent work confirming cyber vulnerabilities in our electronic voting systems. They are bad. We're in the process of informing governors, senators, and members of Congress of potential issues in their states. If you look at voting today, it's in such bad shape in so many states, and we are committing to fix it. And we're also committing to be working with those states and local jurisdictions to help them fix and patch known technical vulnerabilities before the midterm elections. We have very important elections coming up. We want those elections to be honest. I've also ordered DHS to notify every state about non-citizens on their voter rolls and direct them to remove all ineligible voters from the lists immediately. But most importantly, addressing this crisis of election security demands that Congress must pass the Save America Act. How easy is that to do unless you want to cheat? The only reason you wouldn't do it is you want to cheat because your policies are so bad and your candidates are so pathetic that you can't get away or can't get elected any other way. This landmark bill requires that all voters must show photo voter ID. How simple is that? Could I have your photo, please? Photo voter ID. All voters must provide proof of citizenship. Are you a citizen of our country, please? And hopefully there will be no corrupt mail-in ballots, which if you watched California and so many other places, mail-in ballots are inherently corrupt. So you would have no mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military deployment, or travel if you're going away on business or vacation. These reforms are urgently needed to stop the vulnerabilities that I've mentioned. To all Americans, I ask you to pick up your phone tomorrow, call your representatives in the House and Senate, and demand that they pass the Save America Act without delay. Together we will restore faith and confidence in our country. and we will be bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. Thank you. God bless you. God bless our great military. And God bless America. Thank you very much.
God bless you,
All right,
Mr. President. Thank you for those details. That was shocking. We have traitors in our midst. We have evidence of a nation state level attack on American infrastructure, which I think is an act of war. We've got criminals who are covering the entire thing up, and the documents have now been released. I don't know why this wouldn't be a 5-alarm fire for everybody on both sides of the aisle. Every single Republican should now recognize the situation that we're in, where foreign nations and internal enemies of domestic America, the enemy within, are colluding with these foreign powers to rig our elections. The White House just dropped all of these documents, and there are a ton of them. Let me share with you what has now come out as we have seen this information here. The White House releasing the 4 tranches of documents, and there appear to be hundreds of materials inside. And so we will look through them. You can see the first batch that we've got is right here: vulnerabilities in electric voting and ballot counting systems. So some quotes from the president. We heard him outline this for us. For years, Americans were blatantly lied to about the security of our infrastructure. We knew it. We covered it. We saw it on display. They called us conspiracy theories and theorists and liars and people who wanted to just rig an election and reverse the outcome and insurrect the nation and undermine American democracy. Here are the documents. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 just released in this first batch: vulnerabilities in electronic voting and ballot counting systems. We're releasing a series of previously classified ICAs, intelligence community assessments, and other reports proving that our government has long known that these machines are extremely exposed to attacks. The documents, one assessment says, we judge that U.S. adversaries, including at a minimum Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, as well as other non-state groups, have the capability to compromise U.S. election infrastructure. They also state that we assess that centralized election-related data repositories like voter registration databases, poll books, other election websites are most vulnerable, and adversaries could use this. Tonight, we're releasing all of the findings. This is a cyber threat aimed at the very heart of America. Many people have questioned this. Is it possible to manipulate our results? Today, we're releasing documents that show the CIA obtained reporting of a plot by the Maduro regime in Venezuela to do exactly that, to rig their own elections. And it includes precise details about the methods the regime developed to digitally alter vote totals in ways that could not be detected even with an audit. This intelligence underscores why we must take urgent action to ensure that our own systems can never be hacked or compromised. And you may remember this report that we talked about here some time ago that is vindicated. This is not new, but this came back out right before the midterm elections, and this matches everything the president just told us. Over 19,000 fraudulent IDs were seized in Chicago at the port of entry. And the problem with this is that these IDs are essentially real. Okay, the Chinese were making these things and importing them in through Detroit. And since the beginning of the year of 2020 in June, officers at the IMF seized a total of 19,800 counterfeit U.S. driver's licenses, majority of these shipments coming from China and Hong Kong. Now, the issue is that the barcode attached to the Michigan licenses actually worked, right? These were real IDs that were being ported in from China, matching everything that they just shared with us. And so here was one summary talking about Venezuela. And so we'll fast forward through a lot of this because we have a lot to get to, but Venezuela's electronic voting manipulation capabilities, saying the government interest has involved itself in actual election rigging, CIA said that in 2006, certain capabilities about voting manipulation were technically possible and operationally feasible. Specifically blank that voting machines in Venezuela had unspecified AI components installed designed to alter the vote tallies. They could detect when they're being audited and could provide printed receipts without registering or actually transmitting the votes. So the machines could tell when they're being checked and then prevent any actual evidence about their fraud from coming out. Intelligence reporting also consistently indicated that individuals with ties to Venezuela had access to other election technology and voting systems. In 2012, sources reported that Chavez assigned an army of comm specialists to provide real-time access to election results and rigged everything down there. Now, here's just one way to do it. The September 2020 intelligence reporting said on blank plans provided the most detailed description of a specific technical approach to election manipulation. What you do is you replicate digital hash files sent to the central voting counting database. You mimic real voting machines that favored the ruling party or the Democrats. You overwrite hash files of voting machines that favored the opposition. Then you make altered votes appear to originate from legitimate voting machines. Smartmatic and Sequoia, they had contracts in 400 U.S. counties at the time and reporting that the Venezuelan government manipulated Venezuelan national elections with Smartmatic's direct involvement. Whoa! Intelligence also that Smartmatic directors held credentials from Venezuelan intelligence services and open source reporting of corrupt relationships between Smartmatic and Venezuelan government officials. And it's wild. You just say, oh, well, they'll only do it in Venezuela. They would never do that here. Yeah, right. So then in March 2018, Smartmatic ceased operations down there. And you can see the report literally from the CIA says that this is a real possible thing. Huge swaths of this all redacted. That's document 1 on this tranche. Then we also saw this one. January 15, 2020, a National Intelligence Council memorandum. It explains at the high level, the memo assesses the potential of cyber operations. Now, we assess that at least Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea have the capability to access and potentially manipulate data in U.S. computer systems that are related to elections. We do not know whether they have specific plans to do this, but they can. We assess that centralized election-related repositories like the databases and poll books are all vulnerable to this. Systems that tabulate and transmit these things are all vulnerable. Adversary claims of manipulation would be difficult to disprove and also could undermine the results, even if they just say they did it. They say that they do have the capability. Okay, this is in 2020, released by Gabbard, saying they do have the capability to do this, to compromise things. We don't know whether they have any specific plans. Russia almost certainly reconnoitred all U.S. election networks back in 2016, accessed election-related infrastructure, exfiltrated voter data from at least one state. Other nation states are capable of doing the same thing, and the availability of this can lead to interference in the election. We judge that cyber criminals also could target election infrastructure for financial and political reasons based on past incidents or definitely attributed to such groups. We've got 5 pages of this, voter registration databases. States house these things on internet-connected systems. And then secretaries like Jenna Griswold put the passwords on the internet to the machines. Adversaries could use the registration data, which in some cases is available to tailor interference or influence efforts. Poll books, websites, and more. We assess that systems designed to tabulate the votes or display election results are probably vulnerable to localized exploitation, but would be difficult to manipulate at scale. You don't need to manipulate them at scale. You just need to go into Georgia and do it there for 11,000 votes, go over to Arizona for another 12,000 votes, and then go to Wisconsin for about a 20,000 vote swing, and that's the game. You flip those, Joe Biden wins. You give those to Trump, it's 269 to 269. And it goes to the House, Trump wins. Here is one example where they installed the game called Doom on a poll system. And so we've seen some of this before. Now, here's another one that came out October 16th, right before the November election in 2020, saying, oh, look at this, the National Intelligence Council making the case that China has taken some steps to influence the presidential election. The NIO for Cyber and the Director for Election Threat Analysis assesses that Beijing has taken at least some low-level exploratory steps to undermine the president's re-election chances by denigrating him and shaping voter perceptions. This assessment differs from the IC's judgment that Beijing has considered but not deployed influence efforts to affect the election. We assess differently than they do, and we conclude that they probably have included overt messaging, nascent online covert influence capabilities, diplomatic measures, and more. The use of economic leverage to do this as well. Redacted. But they have probably not included, they assess that these efforts probably have not included the use of Beijing's most aggressive options for influencing or interfering with the election, redacted, because Beijing wants to minimize the risk of blowback and hopes to stabilize the relationship after the election once Joe Biden and Hunter come in. In something redacted 2019, redacted assessed that, quote, hostile forces could fabricate claims that Beijing was interfering in this to demonize China. Because of Trump's hardline policies, Chinese leaders may have decided that there is little point to taking the risk to influence this. Chinese people assessed that the pandemic and the economic downturn by itself, COVID was a weapon on its own, diminished the re-election prospects. The IC has seen no indication, redacted, that Beijing engaged in an effort to influence the outcome. From the IC, while we have seen Beijing develop this, other options that could be used to influence the election, we have not seen these capabilities deployed. That's in October. Saying here, someone else claimed that China had not interfered with the election. And another one, a lot of redactions on that paragraph. And so a little bit, that they could, but they didn't. We haven't seen any evidence of it. But after the election was over, there were no investigations into it. They said Joe Biden won. Nobody wanted to look at it. So if election fraud occurs, it occurs on the election. If the election goes against President Trump, who's going to read it? Who's going to look into it? Because they're all happy with the outcome, and the incoming Biden people are certainly not going to go and try to find information to invalidate their own election. The NIO and the DETA assess that China redacted intend to at least indirectly candidates, voter preferences, political processes, and more. And so that was a 7-pager that also dropped from the NIC. In May, a newspaper owned by the CCP claimed that economic measures were enough alone. First time the IC had observed Beijing issue a public warning that suggests it is willing to impose economic costs in order to impact the outcome of the election. So that is another document. Here we see that we've got some disagreements here between the minority assessment and the intelligence community judgment, right? There's a majority and a dissent, just like a Supreme Court case. Broad influence efforts in the United States via diplomatic, business, and media both say, yep, they're doing that. Probable preference for Trump's defeat. Yep, both majority and minority agree. Considered an influence effort aimed at the presidential election. Yep, both agree. Prepared options for influence efforts in an election. Both agree. Concerns about risk versus gain if the blowback is discovered. But if Joe Biden wins and the Chinese help him win, why would there be blowback? Because they would cover it up. Prepared for victory for either Trump or Biden. Avoided a whole of government influence effort and any interference with U.S. election systems. Both agree on that. And then a disagreement. The IC says that they intend public and diplomatic actions to undercut Trump in the election. They say, no, they're not going to do that. The minority says, yes, they will. Also, undertaken a few covert influence efforts to undermine Trump's election. They say, no, they have not. Minority says, yes, they did. So that's another document from the stuff here that was just released moments ago. Another report, foreign threats to 2020 U.S. elections. This one is in August, and they released a lot of stuff, and so we're going to hit it. But here, this is a downgraded version. Ahead of the 2020 election, foreign states will continue to use covert and overt influence to sway the outcome, increasing discord, undermine confidence in the outcome. Foreign states and other actors seek to compromise our election infrastructure for a range of purposes, such as interfering with the voting process, stealing data, calling into question the validity of the election results. We judge that Russia, China, and Iran and many other non-state actors have the capability to actually do this. And we assess that China wants Trump defeated and has stepped up in the past few months to criticize the election, although something Beijing did not intend to try to affect the election. Redacted, 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 redacted. A lot of stuff redacted here about Russia. We continue to assess that Russia's understanding of electoral dynamics about who it will win impacts what they'll do. And we assess that China prefers that the president does not win. Bunch of stuff redacted here. Russian actors have also circulated narratives about voter fraud resulting from mail-in ballots and called some U.S. primary processes rigged by the Democratic Party. So I guess we're all just believing Russian propaganda now. Some Russian actors have shifted their focus to new websites. Another Chinese newspaper published some things. Lots of stuff redacted still here. And other threats to infrastructure. Hostile actors could manipulate systems that count or tabulate votes, even on a localized basis. Post-election audits and paper trails are most likely would uncover these efforts in all states, and foreign actors could have difficulty coordinating large-scale campaigns to manipulate mail-in votes, all declassified by President Trump, which, again, it doesn't need to be that wide scale. It was 3 states. That would have flipped the election. So, all right, so all of that just got released as well. We've got some emails that were unclassified, declassified by counsel to the president on the 10th of July. Let's see what we've got in these short emails. From someone to someone, hi, forwarding these comments from the FBI for your awareness. They had previously told me that Director Wray signed off on this intelligence community assessment, and the only changes since then have been downgrades. Most of this we've been over numerous times, so it's not clear to me if they are backtracking or just commenting for the record. Couple of thoughts on the draft. We're now fine with including the minority view. This is an absolute, but we firmly believe that the analysis in the text box must comport to the same analytic standards. An absolute red line for the FBI. We do not support the inclusion of the minority view without proper context. Below are some more specific points. They note that China's leaders are also intending some of Beijing's efforts to indirectly affect the candidates. We've stated repeatedly that there is no evidence of this intention. Although we note that there was an awareness of this potential to do this, but to state this as bluntly, this is misleading to say that they could do it, but we're saying they're not doing it. When was this released? When was this email sent? Yeah, after the election, Wednesday, December 30th, right? So the cover-up begins. So thanks again for all the work. The final paragraph, the dissent says that we have collection gaps in the entities. This point appears to acknowledge that the collection demonstrated that Chinese leaders practiced restraint and did not intend to influence the outcome of the election. This shift in focus is inconsistent with the earlier portions of the dissent and did not find what China has actually done. Okay, so after the election, DAD Nikki Flores says do not include anything about actual dissenting views in the ICAs. So that also dropped. We've got another email here, one pager that was released as part of just the first batch, saying, take a minute and read through this report. Okay, it cites the same logic used in 2020 to say that these same units were not engaged in election influence, but were only issue focused. To now argue that China is influencing the election, the regional influence focus on issues, they literally cite their arguments. So someone's arguing, like, take that part out. For example, they cite this activity as being Chinese military, even though in 2020, the intelligence said, we didn't know who it was. So who was this person? This report describes the same unit that Blank and I said were influencing the election and now characterizes it as an election influence unit and attributes it to the Chinese government. That's a weird coincidence. So we should consider how this looks and on what logical nonpartisan basis the IC makes calls one or another. Why is this unit engaged in election influence in the redacted and the redacted to, quote, promote China's interest, but when they do it here, it's issue influence, but somehow not election related? It's the same personnel doing the same type of activity. Okay, so when the Chinese are rigging elections in this state and in this state, you call it election influence. But when they come here and do it, You're saying it's just issue influence. It's literally the same thing. They're doing it here. You're just mislabeling it. You're labeling it to be something else. Somebody else responded, sent that back on December 23. So you see how the reports are being written now. They're being written to reframe the problems as though they're not substantial at all. And this one came before the election. And of course, you're not going to find the interference until after the interference happens. Then we had CISA, and this was an election report. It gives us some details, and this is only, again, part of the very first dump. They say, here's the executive summary. From 2019 to 2024, CISA, with that goober, Chris Krebs, conducted a set of technical and operational activities to evaluate threats, all carried out at the request of systems owners. CISA developed a strong understanding of the vulnerabilities at the time of the testing, and it affected select election-related software products and other network environments that they evaluated. In every software product in which CISA identified a vulnerability, they notified them. Now, their findings highlight the reality that election-related software, like all complex systems, contains vulnerabilities, while past partnerships with vendors enabled early detection. Structural constraints limited vendors' abilities to patch their system. For example, some government system certification regimes require that no patches be applied for months before an election. And remember, Jenna Griswold, a literal sitting Secretary of State in Colorado, she went and essentially patched the machines. She updated the machines. She went into the BIOS on the firmware of the machines days before the elections, changed the passwords because she published it on the internet. Beyond the software quality, CISA's assessments repeatedly show that the IT networks operated also lacked cybersecurity hygiene. Many election vendor threat models assume strong network segmentation, but in practice, election infrastructure just taps into the main network, creating opportunities for lateral movement by adversaries who compromise email and workstations. Weak identity management, limiting logging, and more could disrupt the mission-critical components. Overall, the security of our systems is shaped by three factors: software vulnerability, inconsistent transparency, and the networks that these things are attached to. So, a lot of problems in the most safe and secure election of all time. You've got various problems listed here: supply chain problems, interface security testing, authentication problems, cryptographic implementation analysis, automated and manual static source code review. Other constraints: they're not actually updating their software. They're jacking into bad networks and have very limited transparency about this. We have a right to know that our elections or our infrastructure has been compromised and what happened as part of the incident. By openly acknowledging incidents and describing mitigation, we're proactively defending the infrastructure rather than obscuring the vulnerabilities. This transparency encourages continuous improvement. Clear and consistent disclosure requires more. And so here's our recommendation. We need to strengthen our systems because they're bad. Now, here's the last one from just this first batch. It comes from Wire, and it says cyber activities are probably a prelude, to election espionage, now declassified. China is probing the presidential campaign for opportunities to tailor collection and gather insight on these issues. U.S. policy on China has been a high priority for them since at least 2018. And since then, cyber actors known in the private sector have targeted personal email accounts of senior leadership. Then, since 2017, a separate something has worked with something else to enable more stealthy operations, then requesting to crack their passwords. Now, as the 2020 election approaches, the intelligence community has detected Chinese state-sponsored cyber actors targeting the former vice president's presidential campaign to gather intelligence about him that could directly target a campaign. China has also conducted cyber espionage against other election-related entities, redacted. The IC assesses that China does not currently intend to covertly interfere to try to sway the outcome, although this activity could enable those operations if they did decide to do it. As of 20 May, these actors had sent spear phishing emails containing tracking links to Gmail. Google and the FBI both briefed campaign officials on these operations. During the past year, Chinese cyber actors have collected U.S. election-related information. Hacked the databases from U.S. voter databases. They got it from a polling data company, political and nonprofit organizations, and advisory organizations for political campaigns. They send tracking links to map the networks and then exploit the accounts and identify other targets. Knowledge of a campaign official's operating system and software could allow actors to determine whether they could quickly exploit known vulnerabilities. If a target opened a spear phishing email with a tracking link, it would give them access to the system. And so, again, all this came out July 1, 2020. So we're not seeing evidence that they're going to do this. Not currently intending does not mean in June that they didn't do it. It's that they don't currently intend to do it. They're just building the infrastructure in case they need to. And if they're willing to spy on the vice president, what makes you think that they're not willing to escalate this up to a much, much higher level? All right, so that was only in the first batch. Vulnerabilities of the ballot and counting systems. Highly vulnerable. They don't have updated software. They're putting them on systems that are unsecured. And we've got other evidence that in Venezuela, they're also figuring out ways to actually accomplish this. They can do it and create systems and machines, including with Smartmatic. Smartmatic, the same company that's in 400 US counties. And in Venezuela, all they do is just make the machine cover up for itself so that you can't see exactly what they've done. So that's in the first batch. Now let me queue up the second batch. We're going to do something with all of these files. Let me just exit out of them because the second batch is big. And here is the second batch. Let me open all of these up. And it's like 23 documents. All right, so let's fly through these. And, well, it should be pretty easy to go through these pretty quickly here. Why? Because the whole thing's redacted. So first one, sensitive government agency. And we're going to go through these in a lot more detail. I just want to share with you the highlights so you can see what was the substance of the president's message today. Saying redacted, redacted, the PRC redacted, and their analysis on voter registration data comes from 18 states. The Chinese is so crazy. The blue states won't even give our federal government the voter lists because they say my privacy rights. Here, the Chinese already have them. Maybe we should go ask them for them. It obtained 18 states from redacted and voter registration records from something midterm elections, more redacted. Various types of information, including personal information, and would be used blank for mining information on citizens and could analyze, discover the identities, and this information could be used to conduct U.S. general election analysis. Furthermore, something continues state voter registration data. So the PRC redacted and their analysis on data from 18 states. It got the data from somebody. Its contents contain voter registration information from this election. More redacted here. The voter registration data included the following types of information: names, birth dates, home address, and political party. Some data included historical records of ballot and polling records and election donation expenses and other demographic information as well. Over 8 million voters in here. Something else came out of Kansas, everything. Political party affiliation, military, historical voting records. Something else, the voter demographic was released. And this could be used to redacted to discover the identities of important U.S. targets, more redacted. Additionally, this data served as a blank source for opinion analysis on the election. And the rest of the information was on background priority. That's Doc 1. Then we have this summary. Of course, Trump is alerting the states that got hacked by the Chinese. And let's see, are these important states? Yeah, these are pretty important states here. We got Georgia right there on the list. We got Michigan on the list. Michigan was the state that had the tens of thousands of ballots imported in. We got Florida, we got DC, we got Colorado, Arkansas, Alaska. The two main big states that we saw in 2020 with the smallest margins were Georgia, Wisconsin, and Arizona. Between the three of those states, it was 40,000 votes, 45,000 votes. You add in Michigan, I think the margin there was another 80,000. So all said and done, you got about 120,000 votes out of 150 million votes. And that is the game. Okay, so Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, Oklahoma, Rhode Island, all of them got their lists jacked by the Chinese. Here's more in another document. Sensitive government agency. Network Defense Notice, publicly available U.S. voter registration information for 6 states downloaded from commercial websites by the Chinese in January 2022. They're also trying to download Ohio as well. Oklahoma has been added. Publicly available registration information for 6 states was downloaded by China: Colorado, Connecticut, Florida, Michigan, Rhode Island. And this information was all the way from 13 to 21, publicly available just from a commercial website. Some hacker puts it up there and allows you to download it. Colorado and other registration was downloaded on the 14th of January, 2022 from U.S. commercial websites. So maybe it's just being sold. And a U.S. IP address hosting, among other things, that host this information. Don't know what the website is, whether it's legit or not. The government has demonstrated interest in this. This is a newly identified interest for this individual actor. This information is available for public download, and the actors could, in theory, leverage this. Okay, so maybe some of this was actually legitimately downloaded. Don't know exactly how the states are allowing them to download personal identifying information like this. I don't imagine that's part of the records because they're whining and moaning about turning that over to the DOJ right now. But all right, so a bunch of stuff got downloaded there, more redactions in this document. Then we've got this one here, 35 pager. This says electronic media reviewed, tab 1. So it's like a binder. Lots of details here. We got some org charts. Looks like some manual. All raw intelligence report authors must do some things. How to write your reports, how the process happens. And wow, look at these messages. These are curious. All right, so 9/25/2020, we're a couple of months up. And remember, Nikki Flores, yeah, we saw her in the prior tranche of documents. She was the one who was saying there is no interference at all. These people are communicating on Skype, and Orgortez says from Flores to Orgortez. She said, another effing IIR went out re-election security. Someone puts a number in here. Oh, crap. How's the sourcing on the new IIR? Are you guys tracking this one? Says someone else. Given the topic, this is obviously going to get quite a bit of attention. Thoughts on us adding in some additional analyst comments to put this reporting in context? So somebody says this report's bad. They say, oh, crap, it went out. Hey, we have to water it down. Let's add some stuff. Thanks. This is fun. Flores, once again, I don't know who this person is, but that's a new name for us. So Nikki Flores at the DAD. Interesting. I don't even know what to say anymore. Y'all have the Motley Fitif stuff on yellow. Let's rally up Monday, make sure we're all good. I'm out of energy and brain power at this point. Gordes responds to her and says it's a plan. More documents. Looks like this might be the IIR. Let's see. This is an information report, not finally evaluated detail. And then there's a recall of a prior intelligence briefing that went out before. We wanted to re-interview the source. Now, a determination has been made that you need to know some details before we get into it. Contains sensitive information. Lots of stuff before we get to it. Now, based on this on the conflict of this information to that of the wider USIC, The fact that it contradicts Director Wray's testimony, Chris Wray busted, to Congress and the importance to the current administration, I think we should be ready to back up the IIR with a minimum of the following information and treat it like it will be going in front of the president. Personally, I am highly skeptical of this reporting based on the portions about COVID that veer into conspiracy theories, which all turned out to be true. Looking at subsource information, contradicts Christopher Wray. Looks like duplicate paperwork here or other people's assessments. Let's see if we get any other details. A new 1023 will be needed. This reporting will contradict Director Wray's testimony. He said the election was perfect, and they're saying it's not. Then we get this back and forth. We are now required to coordinate this new report with the FBI. That's non-negotiable. The reason for the new 1023 is to show that we attempted to obtain new information from the source after recalling the original version. And so some new information is out, and it's going to make Christopher Wray look like a liar. Now, here this person says, listen, hey, good afternoon, everyone. Okay, I'm not trying to be a pain on this, but after taking some time to think this over, I want to voice my opinion. Now, about the below, I'm not satisfied with the reasoning of needing a new 1023 and a headquarter review. These are operational requirements. Most concerning is stating the reporting would contradict Wray's testimony. This is troubling because it implied to me one of the reasons we aren't putting this out is for a political reason, right? We're not going to release this because Wray said the opposite. That goes directly against our organization's mission to remain apolitical and simply to state what we know. So likewise, at the field level, I do not feel it is our job to assess whether or not intelligence aligns with the director. We are to provide intelligence for people way above our pay grade, like the director, to make the call of what the FBI is seeing as a whole. Now, I do agree that we have an obligation not to put out reckless information or something known to be false. However, we are not in the sole position to determine a report's validity, as we only make up one intelligence community agency and are a small fraction of the entire body. While it's entirely possible that our sources subsourced and not get this information from a PRC government source, it's also entirely possible that he did. As just like in our own government, it's plausible that a journalist would have a source inside the government. So FBI's covering it up, and this guy's like, hey, we have to explain this. So recognizing that the unidentified Chinese officials and the plausibility of the information that the recipients would not have access to match section, I elected to include the context statement. The acquisition of this information passed through a subsource. Chinese officials leaving the veracity of information questionable, but it is being reported due to the nature of the threat. Now, I believe this allowed us to release important intelligence while also highlighting our lower confidence in the information. Overall, if we want to have a disagreement about this, I'm okay with that, but I don't want to drift too far off. Again, I obviously don't make the decisions. I know you guys will, but I think it should be included. Here are some more messages. FBI Albany Special Investigative Agent, SIA, sends CID someone else an email about releasing the materials, saying, yes, it will get a lot more scrutiny, but the source, doc, has a China government, not fraudulent licenses. We want to see what the actual content is. They use emails, and based on the conflict with Director Wray and the importance to the current administration, we should include it. Let's see if they give us any more details about what it actually said. All right, good morning, Sunshine. Do you have any reads ahead of your FITIF update? Yeah, let me shoot you an email. Do you have a serial for that report mentioned to me last week about China, its recall, talking to the Presidential Daily Briefer? That's why I'm asking. She's also asking if there was a revision to the Russian one. I looked in our system, but the system I used to look at these reports is not friendly, so it might be there somewhere, talking about revisions and basically, wow, I'm basically running a shadow government across the FBI at this point. Right from Trump's speech. Yeah, and look at this. Nikki Flores, again, we're pushing out a note today to all FOs that all election-related IRs must come through the headquarters. Everybody has to pass it through the FBI. Here's the flow chart. They identified open source reporting about the Chinese seizing fraudulent driver's licenses from China. Someone emailed the report on the China unit. Another SSA informed a UC about seizures across multiple AORs, recommending a lead and other potential future leads to FBI offices. More information is passed around. Identified the China-based sender names and addresses for the shipment packages. Border Patrol doesn't maintain a list. There it is, man. Look, man, wild. Again, it goes right back. Like, this was a Border Patrol report saying we had tens of thousands of IDs coming in, and they worked. They literally worked. So the sender names don't know the addresses of the fraudulent driver's licenses, as the majority of these documents are used by teens between the ages of 18 and 20 to circumvent alcohol. Sent another one, an email containing another address, other information about the fraudulent driver's licenses. Then we've got a bunch of recalls. So they write reports and then they recall things. Whoa, here it is. Chinese government production and export of fraudulent U.S. driver's licenses to Chinese sympathizers in the United States in order to create tens of thousands of fraudulent mail-in votes for U.S. presidential candidate Joe Biden in late August 2020. There it is. That's the report that they want to recall. That's the report that they say directly contradicts Christopher Wray. It's right there. Tens of thousands of fraudulent mail-in votes using fraudulent driver's licenses. We saw this a mile away, man. We covered all of these stories about the fake IDs coming in. They knew why they were coming in. You don't need 20,000 fake IDs for 18-year-olds to go to a bar. Wow. So they sent that out. Okay, this whole thing is about that. That report goes out. Then you've got internal hacks who say, we're going to prevent the president from seeing it. I'm basically running a shadow government. Everything runs through Christopher Wray. You've got FBI agents and other people in the intelligence communities who are saying this is a big problem. We need to flag it up the chain. They've got some subsource somewhere that is communicating this is actually happening, and they cover it up. That's all you need, okay? That one batch alone. This was one location, one Border Patrol location at Chicago O'Hare, okay? It was 20,000 fake IDs. So if you take those IDs and you go register in Georgia, all you need is 12,000 there. Wow. So they covered it up, man. And it's right there. That's a good one. I'm keeping it off his desk. We're recalling the notice. Nobody can see it. Someone else wants a revision on the Russia one. This lady's literally admitting she's running a shadow government, and it never reaches the appropriate people. FBI Chicago covers leads by coordinating with CBP, just as we mentioned. Wild. Regarding below, it's concerning that you're not going to release this because it contradicts Christopher Wray. Well, there's nothing new to report. We just spoke and we agree. There's nothing new to report about the threat to the election. We're going to wait someone else and contact the source. Someone else emails the source additional information, and then based on the conflict, ask someone else additional questions. This is all logged. Fifth issue, second lead to FBI Chicago. Another person emails the CRO. Based on the conflict of this information, contradicts Wray. We should coordinate, use the following info before revealing any of this information. The cover-up is underway. All right, shocking document. Okay, so that just came out, and that's a good one. Someone else recommends a recall, so you can see what's going on here. IIR is disseminated. Then they email to say, recall that. That's really damaging. Someone else emails another one in Sentinel. Then a separate chain opens. This one informs this person about the report via email, forwards it to other people. Then they state, this should have never gone out. You should have recommended a recall. The source is bad or whatever. Then this other person says, email this person until you go and talk to the source again. So it goes out. Then they got to call it back. Another person requests a recall, says Albany is not going to recall. We'll provide an update when recalled. Then they provide florists their names to Albany. Then it ultimately is recalled. Okay, they pulled it back. This report was recalled because it's bad intelligence. We have to go interview the source. Another one. And then, boom, it goes out. Do not send these anymore, okay? Do not send these out anymore. Do not tell Trump about this. And this is all before the election. So they knew it was going on. And they didn't even, allow it to hit the higher levels because maybe they're Chinese agents or just big fat Joe Biden lovers. Like they know. They look at these numbers down here. They look at the final report on page 35 and they say, wild, man. Literally, the source says we're going to create tens of thousands of mail-in votes to help Joe Biden. It matches. It matches the contemporaneous reports that were released by Border Patrol. Just shocking. All right, now, here's another one. Ahead of the 2020 presidential election, China had extensive political plans to utilize potential blank and cyber operations to sway public opinion against Trump. The plans were designed to exploit societal fissures and vulnerabilities. And this is a lot of people were complaining about TikTok and stuff back then in literally doing this. The plans address several scenarios, including a military conflict and more. The operations covered a broad range of topics: gun proliferation, immigration, inciting migrant communities against the government. That's still happening. Instigating demonstrations against human rights abuses against immigrants, right? Bring the immigrants in and then inflame them. Inflame resentment between anti-immigrant and pro-immigrant communities. Don't really need much influence to inflame us about it because them being here is doing enough. But instigating anti-immigration demonstrations. China has developed various themes on how to do this, of course, using TikTok, hidden influencers, media contributors, and more in that one. We got another one, sensitive government agency, also utilizing cyber operations to sway public opinion, alleging that white people hate black people. What a stupid thing. They bought that one hook, line, and sinker, many of the leftists. Inciting demonstrations and marches, increasing the level of conflict between police and anti-racism, feeding any sense of U.S. law enforcement that it resents the government and people of color, tensions, political party disagreements, women's rights, South China Sea policies, war aspirations, and more. Again, using TikTok and other tools to do that. Here's another one. Same thesis here. Also talking about economic recession, talking about COVID-19 policies, massive foreign involvement, military conflict, broad range of topics, all through influence operations. Then we get another one. Similar argument here, different than the first one that we read as we march our way through this entire batch. But PRC shares 2020 U.S. voter registration data for cities within 7 states back in 2023. So they pick up even more, and all of those are listed here. Lots of redactions on that one. Big fat list of redactions on this next document. Also just gleaned publicly available information from government websites. Don't know if they're buying these things or what, but also election infographics and products saying that they wanted, these were actually mail-in voting processing maps, okay? The Chinese doing recon. Provided a visualization of each state's mail-in voting procedures. They also got mail-in voting 2020 policy change map, a map blank charting the changes because of COVID. Mail-in voting election something, safeguard infographics, also a post-presidential election process timetable, election results reporting, risk and mitigation measures. Why are they investigating all of this if they're not going to rig the election? Weird. Yeah, very strange. Here's another one. Now they discuss the actual targeting of the 2024 elections, saying here, redacted, The essential element in this report is as follows. Would be nice if we could read any of this. To target the 2024 elections. Now, it's unknown if redacted were instructed to target unidentified elections by doing this. Others shared data with the PRC. The data shared included redacted and voter registration information named in one state. Then on July redacted, someone wanted to blank the election system as the following year was the election. 24 was a reference to an unidentified 2024 election, probably 2024 president. Someone else to join an effort in a swing state to observe the voting situation ahead of time. Bunch more redactions, all right there. Then we've got this one. PRC aware in mid-2020 of a collection of U.S. consumer, military, and voter registration databases and had capabilities to conduct identity verification checks of U.S. persons. Crazy. It's like they've got a whole mirror image of all of our systems. They can validate checks of U.S. persons, redacted, something PRC. They were aware in blank 2020, something had something. U.S. origin databases. They contain the personal information of millions of Americans. These databases, redacted, is a comprehensive baseline on U.S. persons. Crazy, man. Here's another one. Another analysis on voter registration information. Again, coming from another sensitive government agency. Don't know who it is or when it is exactly. Saying they're also doing identity matching and public opinion analysis in 2019. Because they just want to do some internal polling, I'm sure. They contained U.S. voter registration records from the midterms, contained other information that would be used for mining information on citizens. The data could be used to analyze, discover, and blank the identities of citizens. The information could be used to conduct opinion something analysis. Furthermore, they could also blank to continue blank voter registration data. And if you have this information and you can just validate this person's not registered, you just register them. Use a fake ID if you need an ID. If you don't, you just don't even need that. And you can just send the ballots wherever you want them to go. Or just print them and send them in with their names on it. Crazy. Don't even need a real ballot. Just send it in there. Beijing, like an official one. Like, do you think they have printers over there? They can just take the names and just print the ballots out and then send them in. You get a mail-in ballot to one legitimate Chinese agent. He just goes and has a printer duplicate the thing. Then you send them back in with all of the fake envelopes under person's names. They're actually already registered or they're on the books already, so you're just sending them in their names. Beijing escalating efforts to shape U.S. policies, all redacted. Warned that Beijing had derogatory information on him in an effort to compel him to take a restrained approach to China. A bunch more redacted on that one. CIA note is here. This one came out. Sensitive reporting from 18 and 20. Saying in mid-2018, the CCP was to leverage all elements against Trump to reduce his votes and make him resign or prevent his re-election. Okay, it's like been a multi-year operation. Also in mid-2018, China was working to influence the results of the midterms. China was analyzing the 16 elections, identifying U.S. states who voted for Trump. Yeah, so they could target those. They would then identify sectors within these states that voted to support the president's party and would attempt to make these sectors experience negative financial consequences by levying tariffs on exports to China from those sectors. The Chinese hoped that these measures would induce representatives from these sectors to lobby the president in favor of China. Now, the ultimate goal was for the president not to be re-elected from China. They found the uncertainty of Trump unsettling. Separately, the government used a number of means to exert influence over people that would be working on behalf of their interests, extending invitations to people, think tanks, and more. In mid-19, China assessed that a means to gain advantage over policy was to direct additional resources towards political swing states. They assessed these states would play a crucial role in 2020. Along with this, it was also recommended that China apply pressure to financial supporters. So they would do all this stuff, but they wouldn't just print some ballots out with their fake IDs. Separately, in 2019, their strategy was to undermine economic and domestic confidence so that people would think negatively of the president. Here's more. More foreign threats. I think we may have seen this one. August 2020, saying ahead of these elections, foreign states will continue to use covert and overt influence. China is stepping up its rhetoric. Although something Beijing did not intend to try to affect the election, they are using online influence, collecting, they're just researchers, writing book reports over there, and other things all redacted here. All right, so carrying on, we judge that China will blank evaluate the implications of outcomes on their interest if Beijing were to assess. Whoa, okay, here we go. This is good. So National Intelligence Council, they say the following. Interesting. We judge that China will evaluate the implications of various electoral outcomes on its interest if Beijing were to assess that the increasingly downward trajectory of China-U.S. relations continue to rise and could not be dealt with using these tools. It might attempt to more directly thwart the president's reelection. Yeah, it might, including by leaking information or through online blank influence networks, or doing this here, or that there, or that thing, or that thing. Beijing has expanded its collection of data, carrying out opportunistic intrusions against U.S. private sector entities in an effort to collect information on candidates, campaigns, donors, voter data, and more. The Iranians, Khamenei and others, focusing on social media content, more Middle East stuff, other foreign actors from Turkey and elsewhere, all involved. Yeah, and even the Germans didn't want Merkel, who wrecked Germany and sold out their country, didn't want Trump to be reelected. All right, so here's some more. There's a lot of documents in this batch. Let's see. FBI not finally evaluated information. Information report. Here's the text. In late August 2020, so this might back up the other report, the Chinese government had produced a large amount of fraudulent driver's licenses that were secretly exported to the United States. This is the one that matches the other chain of custody report right here. So these two are very good. All right, so this gave us all the internal communications, it looks like, about this full document. So this was the one Joe Biden had these fraudulent IDs come in to create fraudulent ballots. The fraudulent driver's licenses would allow tens of thousands of Chinese students and immigrants sympathetic to Chinese Communist Party to vote for Joe Biden, despite not being eligible to vote here. China, had collected private U.S. user data from millions of TikTok accounts, as we suspected. It was an influence operation and a data gathering operation to include names, IDs, which would allow the Chinese government to use real U.S. person info to create fraudulent driver's licenses. Then the driver's licenses were to include a true ID number and the true address of a U.S. citizen, making them difficult to detect. China planned to use the fraudulent driver's licenses to account for tens of thousands of mail-in votes. Crazy. Now, FBI says a person's address information was not a valid field when creating a TikTok account. Unspecified how China would attain that from the application. Oh, I think easy. Yeah, you buy anything on TikTok, you just buy something, you click over into the browser, you type something in, it gobbles it up. You say, yes, you can access my photos. You have a picture of your driver's license in there, they just gobble that up. Any form use inside the TikTok app, any buying, any transaction, you're gonna have your address in there. So it just gobbles it up. And it also might access your other elements of your device. It's not like you have to put it in. So that's a problem, obviously. And so that got disseminated out. And boy, I wish that thing was longer. So again, fake IDs, real information. They just create actual real registrations. And they might just have the ballots shipped right to these Chinese. Tens of thousands, okay? All it took, you add in 11,700, call it 12 from Georgia, 12,000 from Arizona, about 20,000 from Wisconsin. And that's the game. 45,000 votes, round up, make it 50. and you've got the entire game. It would have been 269 to 269 if those other states didn't flip. Then you got Michigan and these other states where it's even more perverse, but that's all you need. You need 50,000 votes out of 150 million people or whatever the total number was. Crazy, man. All right, so let's continue on. We've got more in this first batch. Yeah, here's another message, set of emails. This one is September 3rd. Okay, so these are people talking about county election security graphics. National Intelligence Officer for Cyber says, I am concerned about politics seeping into this. There's no reason we can't say we have blank confidence that they have a preference. I don't disagree with the consensus view that that's most likely, but I strongly disagree that we can be so confident about it given that blank has happened. I'm troubled by the CIA's comments, says this person. The spice must flow. Let's go. Now, is it just me, or are they basically saying we should self-censor our assessment on preference because it could be misused? They do have a preference, that they're acting on that preference, and we assess that they think it's probably not worth the risk. If we can't communicate our thinking clearly, maybe we should just quit and go home. What are they talking about? Okay, we agree, FBI concurs on the edits to the language and with the CIA's edits. We've expressed concern on these products on the preference line. Okay, the preference was for Joe Biden, and they want to flesh that out, dump that in the gutter. In regard to this sentence, I think that if we're going to raise that, we also need to preserve some caveats. Unidentified pro-China influence actors blank have been spreading English language videos criticizing Trump and denigrating him. He says this is literally verbatim. It's from the study. So that's their preference. It's in the report. Thanks for offering your thoughts. I'm not sure it'd be productive for me to address them, though I do think you're mischaracterizing what we're asking for. We were hoping to avoid a dissent, which is why we're emailing everybody, especially because the edits we'd like to see are about inserting coordinated language. And if we can't resolve them here, then you can write a dissent. Now, here's more on this one. We want to highlight 3 concerns we have with this report. We believe our evidence for China not interfering in the election is stronger than you're acknowledging. We can and should make a judgment call about whether China is interfering, not leave it up to the reader to read between the lines. Okay, you have evidence China is interfering. We say they're not. So we should just say they're not. Someone should not be used to justify a conclusion that it could be happening, but we just don't see it. That's actually a critical conclusion. This sets an artificially high bar for evidence. No, it doesn't. That's the whole point of being intelligent. You have to also understand what you can't see, that we must possess empirical evidence to disprove any possible alternative outcome. This is flawed logic. It could be used to justify any conceivable argument one wants to make, and it implies more uncertainty than exists, redacted. In this case, we actually do possess positive evidence about China's intent. And it says that China is not interfering in the election. Yeah. They're just doing all of this for shoots and giggles. China's influence efforts to shift public opinion on a particular policy issues are not the same as election interference, really. Nor are they, because they said that the Russians buying Facebook ads was what stole it from Hillary. Nor are they intended to influence the election. Yes, they are. Who wrote this? We object to language that blurs the line and implies that interference is happening without stating it. And lastly, based on the last interagency call and the lack of dissent, it appears there is a relative consensus within the Chinese watching community. If the NIC election threat team disagrees, then they could write a dissent. But we're saying we can't see it, but our evidence is stronger than yours. Now, we think we need to keep this language about the preference in here there, bucko. It illuminates why we're discussing China in the first place. That line has been coordinated multiple times. It's strange to suddenly stop using that language, that China has a preference for Biden. Why do you want to cut it out? Especially if you're going to mention risk calculus. Why would risk calculus be relevant if they didn't have a preference? This is important for providing a complete picture of what China is doing. And we have language for the other countries that shows what their preferences are. So why are we not saying anything about China? Our alternative was supposed to be only applied to the second half. on the sentence about not trying to influence the outcome, we ask that you either put back in the confidence caveat or revert to the other version with that caveat. Just to be clear, we can't sign off on a definitive statement about this. We don't have an opinion on whether you reference the other assessments about risk calculus or the bilateral relationship. But thanks for putting the pro-China influence actors back in. We ask you use the sentence we provided. Unidentified pro-China influence actors have been spreading English language videos on the president's policies to denigrate him and redacted. We think we need to verify and acknowledge the partisan nature of all of this. More emails back and forth. And we also think that the assessment, we assess that China is not right now trying to influence the outcome in favor of one candidate or another. Liars. This assessment is based partially on blank, as well as judgments that the Chinese leaders and the risk calculus and the understanding of the bilateral relationship. CIA crosses a bunch of this out, putting a bunch of stuff back in. It doesn't address our concern. And we assess that the China prefers the president doesn't win re-election. We think that's the better way to do it. We think that they've used a bunch of things, extensive lobbying, economics, network exploitation, increasingly strident rhetoric about this, pressing U.S. officials, local candidates. Beijing also criticizes policies. And they're expanding its broad whole of government influence efforts ahead of 2020 to shape the environment and to pressure political figures, efforts which we think could be used to influence 2020. However, we assess at this time, China probably judges the risk of being caught there against any potential gains. So we also disagree with excluding the language about these other things. We think this is the most notable new information on the election story and should be addressed up front. If we can't compromise on that, we'll add a separate paragraph and a back and forth on this for a while. We're cutting some of this out. CIA's cutting that out. And again, at the time. To be clear, this is our assessment. It applies to past years. We think there is more gray area than what's going on in 2020 than the original implies. Like, you may say they're not doing it right now, but we can't say that, is what they're arguing. Please see these CIA comments and let me know what you think. Bunch of redacted emails in here. Our latest edition of our graphic. Please send more comments about this. A lot of this all redacted. All right, continuing on. Still a lot to get to. Let's see. We've got emails. Hey, this is great news. Blank is an NSA senior, one of the few seniors that remain analytically focused, so having him on board is a big deal. I think it speaks exactly to what's been on my mind, but what was left out of the mainline assessment? I think this looks very good. Here's another one. Hey, good to know. I've heard a few other similar comments from some analysts in the CIA, though not in the main China office. Here's a blank version of the paper. I sent this to other people, wondering if you had a chance to look at it. This guy comes from the Election Threats Analysis team. Hey, thank you for sharing your thoughts. It sounded to me like your take on this was somewhat similar to ours. I felt like jumping in to agree with you, but I've burned enough political capital arguing with the CIA and the FBI about this. I thought it might be more productive to sit that discussion out. The positions are not really far apart, so I'm not sure why so many in the community want to close down the policy that China might have done or be doing something. Why are they wanting to shut it down? The director of the Election Threat Analysis Group. But hopefully this piece sparks some more thought and discussion. Okay, maybe they're Chinese. Maybe they are bought off by them, but they don't want to talk about it because they know at some level that it's going to be in favor of Joe. Here's another email. Director, Election Threat Analysis, NIC, DNI, Election Threat Executive. Hey everyone, as I'm sure many of you have gathered through the coordinated comments and other conversations, we have a different take on the China election story. Rather than continue to argue and drive you all nuts, we're opting to publish an alternative memo. We think this is the best way for us to get our perspective out. The lead, in short, non-compartmented form, is that we assess that Beijing has taken some low-level exploratory steps to denigrate the president and shape voter perceptions. We have really appreciated everyone's efforts. However, we are clearly labeling this as an alternative analysis, meaning we're not taking comments, and we appreciate your input on this. The intention is to show an honest difference, not to set up a straw man. And again, that's just influence, really. It doesn't say that their analysis was that it was, fake ballots. But here's another memo. Yeah, NSA is deliberately messaging elections presidential daily brief. Jeremy 1, we've got two related things going on here. The presidential daily brief, apparently they've worded away from elections. So they're taking Trump's knowledge away from him. I haven't seen the draft, but we heard a couple of weeks ago, I would be concerned why they are deliberately messaging analysis away from elections. 2, there's a larger effort in the NSA that they will get all blank reporting needed for 45 into the reporting. I've asked blank and blank to check with the other people pursuant to our email exchanges. Okay, so this is again after the election, November 23rd. Okay, thanks. Cross-posting this. We have deliberately massaged one of our pending briefs to avoid any direct links to the election. These people are traitorous. China and North Korea strategic assessments, like put it in the brief. This massive report we have been waiting on has been chopped up into 13 reports that likely will not get out until next week. Many of them will be cross-posted or downgraded so they can more readily be incorporated into the 45-day piece if needed. These people are scum. Who did this? Who is this person? We have deliberately massaged one pending brief, and then they take up the massive report. Hopefully it's in the files. They splice it up into 13 reports. Nobody can see the full report. You read day 1. By the time you read day 13, it's 2 weeks later. 13 days later. You're like, well, I guess, okay, So you can't really reconcile the entire document unless you're like assembling them all and looking at them all in one memo. It is such a traitorous act. Deliberately, that's not your call. You're not allowed to do that. You're violating your oath. You're violating your country. It's sick. Hello, all. Greetings. Just wanted to touch base if anyone has contacted you about this. Greetings. Hope all is well. I just wanted to send you a note with a few thoughts. First, thanks in advance. Thanks. Second, thanks to the co-drafters. And man, we need names on these people. Like, declassify these names. We need to know who needs to be indicted for that crap. How dare you massage the president's brief so that he doesn't read anything? November 20th, another one. You have brought this to my attention, and we see an opportunity to prevent an analytic objectivity mistake from happening. Yeah. Who would be the decision maker here to reconnect the thread on election security to what is about to go out? So, note to election threat, 45-day ICA China section drafting team. Okay, so these people are running interference now. It's a whole operation. I think I mentioned to you before that there was some pending document that makes it clear. Whoa! China has been caught conducting election influence. At least that's how it was described to us. Blank, blank, redacted. But as you scroll up, note that the NSA, quote, deliberately massaged one of our PDBs to avoid any direct links to the election, saying, well, this is important for your report, I'm sure. It also has the potential to be a near-term issue we will draw attention to. This is a really good example, but not the only one. The IC is deliberately avoiding mentioning a connection to elections for non-substantive reasons. They don't want Trump to know. They don't want him to talk about it. They wanted the election to go this way. It's the same intelligence community that right after 2020 conducted the January 6th attack and enabled that to happen with their fake CIA pipe bomber and more. Obviously, since blank isn't released yet, they're holding it until next week. There isn't a PDB, so it won't end up being an issue. But this is a highly irregular way to do things, especially as someone trying to raise tradecraft and substantive objections to the mainline analysis and isn't getting our work incorporated or even mentioned. Why are you not putting our report in there? Someone else says, small update from the NSA below. Their daily brief isn't going to tie to the election. The mind boggles. Hopefully these people blow the whistle after today too. Like, out yourself. If you were objecting to this, out yourself. Let us know. I haven't heard from the China drafting group either. My impression is that they've been waiting for the new something PDB to update the story before they feed that into the ICA. I don't want to preempt what the reports will say. I really think that we need to comment on how the new information relates to the election story or not. Customers of the product will expect that from us. NIO Cyber, and I think the new info is highly relevant, though I realize we're in the minority here. I understand you're trying to navigate various perspectives, so just an FYI. Now, as far as downgrades or cross-posting, as long as we can get to the blank level, we're good. NSA has been fantastic about making election-related relevant blanks usable, so we really appreciate your commitment to that. Yeah, if you make sure there are blank versions, we're good on this. Blank has heard and received nothing. Someone else says, we have deliberately massaged one of our pending PDBs. The massive report we have been waiting on has been chopped up into 13 reports and will not get out. Many of them will be cross-posted or downgraded, and so no one will know. Greetings. Just wanted to touch base. Anyone contacted you about this? They explained it. Please CC everybody on what you're doing. Sick people, man. Now, here's another set of emails. We're getting close to the end of this batch. December 23rd, 2021. So some time has gone by. And very short doc. Email from somebody to somebody about everyone's favorite topic. Hi, take a minute and read through this report. It cites some of the same intel and logic used in 2020 to say these same units were not engaged in election influence, but were instead only issue influenced, to now argue that China is influencing the blank election. The regional influence, focus on issues, etc., they literally cite as support for their argument some of the same reporting used in the mainline assessment of our minority report. So this guy says, look, now they're saying it is election interference. Back then it wasn't. It was only issue focusing. For example, they cite this activity as being, quote, the Chinese military, even though in 2020 the IC said, we don't even know who that is. So the IC reverses themselves. This report describes the same unit that Blank and I said were influencing the 2020 election and now characterizes it as an election influence unit and says it does come from the Chinese. You know, that's a weird coincidence and one that we should highlight for oversight. FBI and the Blank are now flipping. So we should consider how this looks on what logical, nonpartisan basis the IC makes calls one way or the other. Why is this unit engaged in election influence in this and this? To promote China's interests, but when they do it here, it's issue influence, but somehow not election related. It's the same personnel doing the same thing. We saw a report, I think similar to this. During the past years, they're collecting voter databases, polling companies, nonprofit organizations, fundraising, sending links, and we've read some of that, I think, in a prior document. All right, continuing on. Last one in this batch, and then we'll hit batch number 3. And then 4. Saying here, PRC has leaked compromised data. Okay, that is not the publicly available stuff. Included US blank entities in 19 data sets. Apparently include those related to this and that and voter data. Okay, so they're buying some public data and they're getting other non-public data. Compromised or leaked. So Chinese agents getting it and leaking it, or compromised data that is hacked. A PRC blank was in possession of a document of the blank 2019 that contained a list of blank entities and the data something yielded. While a comparatively small portion of the list entries featured entities in this, the US, most of the entries were targets in other countries. The data was primarily dated from 2009 to 18, all redacted. Of particular note, the majority of the entities consisted of blank data sets of personal information, potentially indicating this was their goal, bulk data collection. These also data sets included several characterized as voter registration records. Someone else possessed a document, and 97 entities came from the US, though the majority of the list was from other countries. The list appeared to be organized based on certain factors. Most of it came from private companies, government orgs, and NGOs. All of that redacted. Oh, look at this number. 204 million records of unspecified US voter data. We're cooked. We got to get the SAVE Act passed, man. And we got to comb through all of our voter systems. 204 million records. 2016 includes voter names, ages, phone numbers, addresses. A file downloaded by someone on something indicated possible possession of this data as well. And they don't want to give it to the DOJ because the DOJ might check that and find that there are other problems. Then we got in 17 another 1.7 million records. Wow. Then 2 more state voter databases have been taken, 7.8 million records, full voter IDs, names, addresses, date of birth, citizenship, and more. 3 more, 5.5 million from 3 states. State number 4 got their stuff hacked. State 5 got that. State 6 got that. State 7 and more. Emails from a named U.S. person includes election-related materials, 7.42 gigabytes. A medical database with 28 million records. All of this redacted. Named U.S. medical group servers, named biogenetics groups, named U.S. school, business service companies. U.S. They got everything. They got everything. It's every single thing that we have. America exploit. We've got leaked data from a U.S. cybersecurity company. Emails, passwords, Mac torrents, email provider. Who knows what that is? Other websites that I don't know and don't want to repeat. We've got other social networking companies. Wild. Which ones were those? How many records came from Facebook, huh? How many records came from YouTube or Google? How many came from, oh my gosh, 4 of them. 5, 6, 7. Networking company, U.S. labor organization, religious media organization, international law, business cards, named U.S. lawyer association, think tanks, software companies. It's everything. This goes on for 24 pages. Wild, man. Defense contractors. Oh, look at this. That's the bad stuff, okay? The stuff we saw was bad, not this bad. All that is redacted. So it just gets worse by the minute. So, oh my goodness. All right, so that's only the second batch, right? That was China's acquisition and exploitation of America voter data. Now, let's take a look at what's going on in Michigan. Then we'll take a look at the non-citizens, illegal aliens, impeding America. So let me download this batch and then we'll open them up. And let me see, how do I want to close some of these out? Man, there were some really good documents in there. Okay, I'll just remember which ones were good. Close these. Close, close, close. Don't want to get too many tabs, you know, we're going to have like 100 tabs open here. So closing, sorry for all the beeps. Then we're going to download the second batch and open all of these zip files. Let's see how many are in here in this batch. A lot. All right, great. So perfect. Good, man, because we want justice and accountability, baby. All right, so this is all about the Michigan voter registration investigation. And once again, in this location out in Chicago and other ports of entries, we've had tons of ballots, tons of fake IDs coming in. Let's see if this relates to anything like that. From Detroit. To open up a full investigation, we've got an FBI opening investigation document. And we've got, I don't know, maybe 20 something documents in this batch alone. So here's what they started to say. All right, FBI Detroit was informed that the Michigan State Police, Michigan AG, and others were investigating allegations of a fraudulent voter registration program. We determined, MCCO determined bulk of applications were being sent by this. Look at this. MCPD estimated that blank delivered between 8,000 and 10,000 registrations, okay, from a fraudulent entity. That's a huge number. And that's like probably what they know, informed investigators that she worked for this under its owner, this, and that she was paid for voter registration work. The matter was referred to law enforcement. Then a subsequent investigation found that a number of prepaid debit cards located here, raising concerns that blank is paying people to register. Then, since on or about October 5, 2020, they got 6 packages marked blank from U.S. mail containing voter registration applications, MCCO. And that's the Muskegon City Clerk's Office. Okay, fast forwarded through that, but it's the clerk's office when you see MCCO. They determined that some of the applications were fraudulent based on a number of factors. They determined the bulk of the applications were sent by blank, also hand-delivered numerous applications. They said an estimate, probably between 8 to 10,000. They also conducted a non-custodial interview of this person. She informed investigators that she worked for this dude and that she was paid for voter registration work. Conducted an interview of her. She stated that she was a first-level supervisor overseeing canvassers, with canvassing being conducted. People were given reloadable paid cards, but later changed her statement to say, no, I'm being paid hourly. Told investigators that she could not recall her boss's name. Yeah, she earlier identified him, was driving a rental vehicle. Then they got her movements. They tracked her via GPS after getting authorization from a court. The information received showed that blank had traveled to blank blank on October 23rd. An open source search for the information identified it as an office location. So then we got a search warrant for the office located here. We rated it, found a bunch of things: employee list, payroll information, any information about the reloadable pay cards. SAs and others were dispatched to the scene due to concerns about weapons on the scene and a large quantity of reloadable cards. Now, there is information here that they were engaging in crimes. The allegations involve potential payments for registrations for 2020. The identities of the subjects redacted here. On March 16th, then, interesting. The U.S. attorney in Michigan was fully informed of the facts of this case, saying his office would prosecute these people for wire fraud. Strategy may include public information, don't need a CDC review. It's going up the chain. That's that document. All right, let's see what else we got. Hi, here's another email. So now we're in 2023. Election's over. Joe Biden's drooling all over himself in the Oval Office. Saying, hi, from FBI Detroit, Grand Rapids. See attached the voter fraud spreadsheet, which details all information and the outcome of person search. On another spreadsheet named stats, I provided some percentage breakdowns for your request. Let me know if there's any specific stats you'd like to see in addition to these. One email. Then we get another one. So they might be out of order. We'll just hit them and put them together in our brains. This one in 2021. I understand, based on previous calls between you and the prosecutor, your offices. Wow. Okay. So yeah, incredible, right? So this is where the cover up comes in. So they raid the place. They're going to charge them with crimes. FBI writes up a report to go charge them. Then all of a sudden we fast forward. Now it's a year later, November 4th, 2021. Joe Biden is ice cream guy. And they say, hello. We previously discussed the current state of the investigation, the results of our financial review, and the content of the Michigan AG's case file. Would you be able to provide an undated letter about concurrence or non-concurrence about what we're going to do? Saying, yeah, I understand, based on previous calls between you and the prosecutor of Michigan and other information, that your respective offices have evaluated the matter and are not seeking further investigative or prosecutive action at this time. Based on the information provided, we agree, don't prosecute these people. It's all just perfectly normal stuff that's happening out there in Michigan. Okay, so the cover-up's underway. Nobody gets charged. Someone else has informally advised us that no further action should be taken at this time. He will send an official response. I don't know the status of this, but definitely don't investigate these fraudsters. Have you heard anything? He's going to talk to his supervisor. Following up on this about voter registration fraud, we recommend requesting a detailed assessment of this. Please advise if there are any other pending election contests. And let us know what you're going to do. Answer, they're not going to do anything. Saying we did identify fraudulent stuff, addresses that did not exist. We had invalid phone numbers. We had signature match problems and similar handwriting on multiple applications. They came from the same company, from Redacted, came in person to drop them off. These applications contained similar issues and were from blank identified she worked for blank. In total, 8,000 to 10,000 applications were mailed. So then they opened up an investigation, conducted search warrants, executions, and then they dumped the investigation because they wouldn't have liked what it found. These all look like they're emails kind of around the same thing. Yeah, what are you going to do? Are you going to investigate these things? Hopefully you can. We're reviewing the memos about election integrity. We think that we might be able to prosecute them for these things. You know, submitting fictitious names, providing false information, conducting a production of voter records that are fraudulent, false information, and more. We think we can charge them. If we can, we should. I understand that proving this was willfully would be difficult, but I wanted to raise my concerns before closing the case. Of course, everybody closed it. Here's another one. Looks like 12/15/2023. Some interview, Special Agent so-and-so conduct an interview. They spoke with MDOC parole officer to obtain current information about this person. Blank has never heard of someone, does not know anyone who works there, never worked for a job trying to get people to register to vote, has had other issues with identity theft in the past. Explained the FBI is investigating this company. Information about the contractor read to you. Misread one digit in the social and then corrected it during the interview. So they go talk to this guy, sounds like he's in jail or he's on parole, saying, I'm trying to get my life back together. I've made mistakes in the past. I was released from prison March 2020. Never done any work like what the FBI is investigating. December 15th, someone else called out. He said, yeah, I do remember working for this company. Our job was to find people to register to vote. Can't remember the name of the company. Spoke with his girlfriend who reminded him about the job. Worked for the company. After about 1 week, he quit. Never collected any names or any payments. That's that one. Then we get another one here. Same time frame. Fall of 2020. So-and-so who was not married at the time went by blank, went to somewhere and someone. Office was an eyeglass store, went into the office to help register people to vote. Office run by a tall, thin white male. Probably, maybe Norm Eisen, if I had to guess. Job was to stand outside of businesses asking people if they wanted to register. Over 100 people doing the same job. These employees were paid based about how many people they got to register. Then would turn them in. Then they executed the search warrant. They were told the job's over. One person says she completed 22 voter registration applications. Said, I remember everyone. No, I filled them out for them. And there was somebody said, if you can't get enough applications, right, it's just a cover. Go get names. If you can't find them, make them up. They should just fill them in. There was a meeting with over 100 employees present. One of the employees said, what does this mean? Says, just fill it in. Whichever it was, pick up a blank ballot and fill it out with made up information. He said, this is what I mean. Either this or this, then told them to make sure the information was filled out correctly or they wouldn't get credit. You need to submit 7 to 8 applications per shift. Someone was paid approximately $800 each payday. The company gave them debit cards, reloaded them. Someone else was told to put any number she could think of for a social security number. Like literally just make it up. Don't use your own. Someone else was told she could make up names or anyone else's names. Fill in the blank sheets with made up people and fill out all of the Michigan issued driver's licenses and more. If there were forms that were rejected, some employees would pick them up, sign them, turn them in for credit. The white male who ran the office left before the office closed. He never said he was leaving. After he left, blank and blank and blank ran out of the office. The white male was around when people were instructed to fill out the applications. Everyone working there was aware it was occurring. Someone doesn't know if they were trying to impact the election or just try to make money. Others employed by the group were so-and-so. There were a couple of black males that were there with friends whom they had hired. One was approximately 5'5", other 5'6", little fellows, and 120 pounds. They also worked together with seemed fishy, always whispering to each other. She says that she thinks she submitted 100 fake voter registration applications. They were told to personally make up the information, tell the same thing to a lot of people. Would not surprise her if there were thousands of fake applications submitted. Obviously. Okay, that was the whole point. That's why nothing ever got investigated there. And so, absolutely, a total abuse of their system. Fake applications. There were no posters or anything saying don't turn in fake applications. The employees were just doing what they were told. They knew what was going on was fraud, but they were forced there. They needed to make a living, and that's what they did. So here's another one. Initially, this dude could not recall. He applied for the job near Dollar General. He also would collect signatures, expected to get a certain amount of signatures every day. If he did not get it, he would not get paid. Couldn't specifically remember if he forged anything, but saying, yeah, he probably did at some point. He believed people would fake signatures. And that guy also did it as well. Here's another one right around the same time, 2023, before they dumped the investigation, doing interviews. In 2020, this dude worked as a canvasser, heard about the job, wore a green and blue shirt, would go out for voter registration, would return to the office. She had collected $400 every 2 weeks, paid via debit card, saying she was never directed to make up information on the applications, was never told that she might have an opportunity to work in other offices. But she knew of others who would trade marijuana for it and said, yeah, they probably did submit applications with other names, but I never did it. I never submitted anything fake. Yeah. Then met her baby's father while she was canvassing, and someone else provided a screenshot from Facebook of these people. And that's that report. Here's another one, 12/15/23. Same story. Another person saying she would get paid. She would bring the signed papers back. She walked around and asked people to register to vote for Obama 3 to 4 years ago. Didn't work at one specific location. She was getting gypped, $300 once, almost $400. Paid based on how many signatures. Doesn't recall how much she was paid. Doesn't recall how many signatures she made. Had to submit a certain number, not aware of giving anything, anybody any people in return. She did it because it was easy money, never made up information, and believed, though, that people would submit false applications so they could get as many as possible. She did not maintain contact with anyone who worked for there. And unknown black male supervisor, once again, is this guy. So it's a lot of this. 2020, employed at an organization, 2 managers, did not know what happened to the envelopes after that, paid hourly, knew other people who were working there, and confirms, blank recalled that there was another office in this location. Like, this was one spot. There were probably a dozen of these. One spot, management was instructing to make up phone numbers and date of births on voter registration applications. And the problem with this is, one office got caught, but that doesn't mean that the other offices got caught. And there were apparently others. There were other offices that they could work at. Okay. Not just this one. There were others, and didn't find them. So another person's cell phone number here, currently works as a certified nurse, responded to an online advertisement on a job board, $500 to $600 per week. You have to, she also worked for a clerk. Canvassers then got the forms. They would make the necessary redactions. And let's see here. What's going on with this one? To become an office clerk, while she was employed here, she was supposed to redact voter forms. including numbers and more. She recalled one female employee acting like a vice president, light-skinned black female who wore her hair wrapped, responsible for running the canvassers. Okay, so she's like the operations gal. Was familiar with some other people, did not know how the canvassers were being recruited, believed some people were getting $10 an hour. They were required to provide an ID card, did not know if anyone submitted false applications, but she would be willing to speak for others. And after her time at this, she felt like blank was possibly trying to suppress or prevent people from voting for President Trump. Thank you for saying that. We know. Yeah, that's what the whole operation was, is to get fake ballots and fake registrations. So here's more. Unknown subject came in with a Biden shirt and offered to collect her absentee ballot. Interesting. Someone else told the unsub that she was not registered to vote. She had a tablet with him and offered to register her to vote. Declined, told them don't want to register. Recently, she did get a voter ID card in the mail. Didn't register, but got a card. Someone else also noted that a few weeks prior to Halloween, she received what she believes was an absentee ballot. She shredded it. She's 100% certain she was never registered to vote. Okay, so other people are registered and they didn't even do it. I've never voted, but she got a ballot because there's extra ballots floating around. Here's another email chain. Could you please give me a call on my cell when you get a chance? Special Agent, FBI Detroit. Currently on detail. This guy can call you. All right, I'm moving him to BCC now. I've got meetings throughout the day. I'm available. Call me after your meetings. All right, thanks for reaching out and taking the time to discuss this. We're currently investigating a potential voter fraud scheme involving canvassers for Michigan's 2020. Again, that was like 80,000 votes, so you don't need a lot of this going on to do that. As part of the investigation, you want to interview 100 people who served as these canvassers and submitted false applications, 100 people. In order to meet quotas for voter submissions, Michigan has elections going on. Right now, November 7th, 23. Now, as we discussed, this matter implicates the department's election non-interference policy. Look at this crap. So the FBI gets slapped down. We've discussed this. You're interfering with them. Because voter registration in Michigan is unitary, interviews of numerous canvassers close in time to the upcoming 23 election may create a public perception that you're trying to interfere. So we concur in the proposed interviews after November 7th. We've discussed these potential interviews. Don't do these things. Please consult with us again before engaging in any investigative activity. Any close in time, including from February 27, 2024. Look at that. So you can't interview anybody before November 7th. Then as soon as that's over, you can interview people once again up until February 27th and the primary start. And now you're interfering with an election again. So stop your investigation. From the Biden people. Here's another memo. Alleged voter fraud right before the election, 10/29/2020. Saying this serves to summarize allegations of voter registration fraud. We've got this matter referred to law enforcement by the clerk who's receiving these ballots, fake addresses, fake telephone numbers, no signatures, no records. They have the same handwriting. So that means, many of them are drafted by the same people. But if you just kind of shift your handwriting, saying these have similar red flags, we think 8 to 10,000 were fraudulent. And someone else said that they paid for doing this. A Sentinel search revealed positive searches for these people. And so there were 6 packages that were ultimately revealed with all of those problems. Then we turned over multiple applications. They were aware of more suspicious applications, raising red flags, 8 to 10,000 forms in person or via mail. And the Dana Nessel, the Michigan AG, is going to be investigating this. Yeah, right. More of this being chronicled. We've hit a lot of this. They got search warrants and they did their investigation. Okay, continuing on. Here's another email chain. Looks like this one came out from the DOJ. Hi, thank you for your call today. I want to summarize what we talked about. Here are the problems. Nothing matches. Unable to locate anyone by that name. Made up person, fictitious person. Name located, but nothing matches. Phone number inactive. Unable to locate anyone by the date of birth. The address is a park. Phone number is inactive. We can locate some people. Number 17. Name 17 located. Unable to locate that guy. Unable to locate that guy. Dead guy. All information matches except the phone number is inactive. Unable to locate anyone. Address does not exist but returns to a different name. Phone number does. Based on these, it appears 7 completely fabricated. 4 contain a real name, but driver's license and social don't match. One of the applications is a real name, middle name doesn't match. One of the applications is for someone who does not even appear to have ever lived here and is fabricated. 7 of them are actually legitimate and are probably real registrations. So just wild. All right, here's another one. Database searches were conducted on 107 applications. 91 individuals returned no results in the database checks. 91 out of 107. 16 were real, but only 4 had signatures that matched. And it's just literal voter fraud. And how many of these got through? And how many of these ballots went out? Yeah, a lot. Probably 85,000 of them. So here's more on the timeline here. The investigation continues. It gets open before the election. After the election, it continues. Eventually, the DOJ shuts it down. Someone else is reconsidering prosecution in 24. Yeah, so still a declination, and that's the timeline. Here's some more. We got a one-pager. On March 22nd, 2022, Ryder conducted searches through the Secretary of State to determine if information on his registration card is fraudulent. The returns are that they're fraudulent. Phone number on the form is inactive, does not return to him. The address listed is not a residence, and the zip code on the street is incorrect, all made up. Yep. And I would imagine that ballots went out to them, right? Not the ones that they caught and intercepted, but the other ones that made it through. Ballots went out to these places. Or you could just go vote in person. On March 22nd, Ryder conducted searches for these addresses. No returns again for this dude's name. Same thing here. We did some searches. No results for that dude's name. Another memo. Haven't gotten a response. I'm not really comfortable closing the case at this point without raising these issues. I'm also not thrilled with the wording from so-and-so stating the PIN occurs with our decision not to pursue it, as opposed to the PIN is directing us not to pursue it, okay? So thank you for agreeing with us not to prosecute this. That's not what we said. You're telling us do not prosecute this. These people, man. All right, so here's some more. Sensitive investigative matter. FBI explaining no further investigation is warranted because we've exhausted all of our leads. Oh, wow. State of Michigan, they write this report. Wow, their fraud operation has been exhausted. We didn't identify a criminal violation or a priority threat to national security. We found, for the purposes of establishing something, allegedly for the purpose of establishing the ability to vote. Blank found no evidence that blank submitted false voter information with the purpose of voting. Further, Detroit found that anyone submitting false voter registrations, no evidence that anyone was doing this. Interviews of this employee was conducted, and canvassers were not instructed to falsify voter registration information. We literally just read it. No further investigation is warranted because logical investigation of the leads have been exhausted. The investigation did not identify a criminal investigation, and the U.S. prosecutor under Joe Biden concurred with this. So it's all good, and we're going to close it out courtesy of the DOJ. And I think this is maybe the end of the game here. So they close it out. They do all that work. They can't find anything. And they say, well, we didn't want to close it out. You guys are ordering us to close it out. Here's another report. Blank worked for blank sometime between September and October from Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. She was taking care of an elderly person and found out about this job. Someone else was dropped off at different stores like Save-A-Lot, Family Dollar, liquor stores. Asked people, are you registered? Van would drop off people at the stores. Each day, complete the forms. Blank thought people, though, might be forging signatures because the younger employees would return a lot of signed registration forms. She'd say, like, I would be out there, this nice woman, I'd be out there trying to register people. I'd get like 3 or 4 for the entire week. I did not forge signatures. Supervisors told someone what they were doing was cleared with the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson. Probably did clear it, to be honest. She said, no, just make it up. I don't care, as long as they vote for me. The employees would return signed forms to the main office. There'd be a paper with their names on it. They would tally how many they turned in. Blank never heard about incentives. Blank also confirmed her handwriting and her signature on the contract attached here. Is that you? That's me. So she's out there like busting her butt. Gets 4 people the entire week. These other people come back with hundreds. Someone else worked here. He was tasked to find some people, got his girlfriend to come join him, $700 to $800 a week. Blank had an office on and near this location, wore a green shirt, and a black lady named somebody would task employees daily. Initially, they would drive a van. She would drop people off several times a week. Then they were dropped off at different locations. Some people would register on more than one occasion. Yeah, so it's like an actual real person with multiple registrations. At the end of each shift, all of the applications were turned over to the supervisors. Blank was never asked to, nor did he ever fraudulently fill out anything. But he did know some people got more money for more signatures. Some people had their friends sign duplicate applications. If you were good at your job, you might get a promotion, but there was not a quota. Some people thought that Blank worked for Joe Biden. If they were not getting people to register to vote and others, they were tasked to go door to door to hang out and say, vote for Joe. He said something seemed off to him. After a short time working for them, he quit. It was weird to find people who needed to register to vote, then to put up flyers for people to vote for Biden. After a while, he heard that Blank building was raided by the police. He knew a lot of people who also work for so-and-so and brothers who were really into it. Blank and Blank also worked there. He said, yep, that is my contract and you've got me. So they were they identified 8,000 to 10,000 ballots. That's what they caught. How many did they not catch? How many are in the voter rolls? Why is Jocelyn Benson fighting so hard to prevent any actual scrutiny of her registration list? Because I would bet there are tens of thousands more on the list. Okay. And when the FBI was looking into it and the balance of power shifted at the DOJ, suddenly they all came out and said, we're not interested in you actually continuing this investigation at all. Bunch of charges could have been brought. None were. And they all looked the other way. While 8,000 to 10,000 that they caught were all released, which is why they don't want you looking at their list. The lists are just filled with fraud. And if you check the list and check them twice, you're going to find out Jocelyn Benson is not very nice and she's rigging our elections top to bottom. So, all right, that is the third major batch of documents. FBI agents working on the case believe that crimes were committed, but the Biden DOJ slow-walked it for years. Then Patel is directing this as being fully investigated and to work with the DOJ to prosecute those people responsible for crimes. So hopefully we get more going on there. Yeah, and how many other cities was this going on in? They just happened to catch these people. Very sloppy, maybe a little bit over-aggressive, but how many got through? And as we said, in Georgia, you only needed about 12,000. You flipped the election. Same thing in Arizona. All right, so lastly, let's take a look at these non-citizens who are on our voter rolls. And apparently we've got almost 3 million of them. So we'll queue up these documents. Let me clear out the other PDFs and we'll hit the final documents on the night. And it shows you what a problem all of this is. All right, so a lot of documents in that batch. And now let's download and open up the final folder of these materials. And what do we got inside? Oh, not a lot. Okay, so these are just 2 PDFs. Let's see what we got in here. All right, so here is this batch. This section comes from non-citizens on state voter rolls. Homeland reviewed state voter rolls. They've identified 278,000 non-citizens who are literally registered to vote. At the upper end in 2020, if you add Michigan plus Georgia plus Arizona plus Wisconsin, you're less than 150,000 votes. That's the whole election. Trump flips those, it's game over. He wins. 150,000, that's it. And we had mass voter mail ballots, and there was rigging at every other institutional structure of our elections. But now we've got, as you can see, 250,000 plus. So here's what this report says. From Homeland Security, Homeland has initiated multiple investigations related to allegations of non-citizen voting. Review of the first public voter files from states that have not utilized the SAVE system have revealed the following. Over 250,000 non-citizens are illegally registered to vote in just the 4 states for which public data files have been reviewed. What states are those? Let's see if we can find out. Now, state election officials in California, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Nevada have been notified of the serious threats to national security, and Homeland is ready to help them look at their lists and remove the ineligible registrants. The investigation is expanding to include multiple additional states, and Homeland is going to review other files and support the DOJ. Harmeet is suing to get these records to help the states clear them out. But they'd rather just give them to China. States that protect federal elections, numerous proactive, conscientious state officials have utilized free services from Homeland. In the short time that the enhanced SAVE system has been available, 10 states have processed their full voter rolls. Wild. As of June 22nd, a total of 25 different states processed more than 68 million registration records through SAVE. Homeland has enabled those states to identify over 400,000 dead people, 28,000 non-citizens who illegally registered to vote. Now, as demonstrated by the sample data to the right, these states are serious about ensuring that only U.S. citizens vote in elections. Homeland applauds their efforts to prevent non-citizens from actually registering and being unlawfully voting. Several other proactive state officials have also signed an MOA with the U.S. CIS to utilize the SAVE system and have processed portions of their rolls. Unfortunately, due to the actions of Judge Sparkle Suknanan, the dual citizen foreign-born judge from Trinidad and Tobago, who invalidated this system, many of the enhancements to this service of the system have been suspended. So as a result, U.S. citizens are at risk of having their votes diluted by Sparky and illegal aliens. So there is an undeniable pattern emerging at Homeland. It begins to unravel the horrific damage done by the open border policies of Biden. States that have adopted alien first policies instead of America first policies have a disproportionate number of non-citizens on their voter rolls. And so that's the release there. And here, Georgia's on this list. So we got Georgia, Ohio, Tennessee, Texas, North Carolina, Idaho, Alabama, Missouri, Louisiana, and Kansas, red states. Texas had 111,000 dead people on there. Georgia, I'm surprised, is complying right now. It's Kemp and Raffensperger, but non-citizens, these are smaller numbers than what we read here. And I think that's just a sampling of the data. Proactive SAVE user states. So that number is obviously a lot smaller in this column than 278,000, but let's see if we get some more details on this. Yes, we do. All right, bigger report here. July 26. Recognizing and addressing threats to state voter registration databases. Recently declassified records now revealed that China breached multiple voter registration systems. We read through those documents. Now, this is not new. Unclassified reports explain that these lists are very attractive targets. Hackers have attempted to breach these systems in all 50 states, confirmed success in 20 of them, and they've routinely minimized the experts the seriousness of these breaches. This makes our elections less secure. State and local officials must prioritize enhanced defenses, and steps should be taken to prevent stolen data from being used to obtain absentee ballots, alter registration info, add or delete registrants. Implementing or maintaining safeguards is essential. So it's imperative we know about this. We have to accurately assess what's happening. And while candid acknowledgement of these threats may cause concern, we have to fix the infrastructure. This product provides an unclassified review of what's going on. So here's the history of the breaches. Russian government cyber actors exploited SQL database vulnerabilities. The FBI reported they lacked insight into the extent to which attempts were successful. However, in at least 2 separate instances, Russian actors accessed voter files from a U.S. county website in June 16. The DA in Riverside County, California, revealed that a bad actor used the registration to change party affiliation of a number of voters. This individual made the changes by leveraging access to voters' information to make the change. Russian actors also hacked the website of State Board of Elections and stole information about 500,000 voters. Russians also hacked into computers of a U.S. vendor. DHS and FBI confirmed that Russians and their reconnaissance probed databases in all 50 states. Couldn't even confirm how many of those were successful. In January 17, White House officials also reported the federal assessment was that networks in at least 7 states were compromised. Arizona experienced a breach, and the Illinois State Board of Elections announced that attackers got voter data, names, and more. Kennesaw State University, which is responsible for Georgia's database, was found to expose 7 million voter records, including driver's licenses and socials. The data may have been exposed for as long as 7 months. So Arizona, key swing state, gobble up that data in 16, use it in 20. Georgia, key swing state, gobble that up, use that in 20. Chinese state-sponsored cyber actors aggressively targeted U.S. critical infrastructure to steal sensitive data. CISA and the FBI reported that members of the Iranians attempted to exploit websites, and they successfully got data in at least 1 state. They could not determine if the attempts were successful in other 11 states targeted. Probably. Pro-Russian hacktivists also claimed a DDoS attack that restricted access to public-facing systems. Suspected Chinese cyber actors scanned both election-related and non-election state government websites. Also, PRC cyber actors collected publicly available U.S. voter information in 2022. New Hampshire officials discovered that a vendor selected to replace the state's registration database offshored the project. Wow, great. Software had been configured to connect to servers in Russia, and a programmer had hard-coded the Ukrainian national anthem into the database. Wow. Then the issues were corrected before deployment. So state and local election officials need to prioritize this stuff. We need safeguards. And while the potential impact of these database breaches is often minimized, these could be very consequential. It's broader than just undermining confidence. The data itself could be used months or years after the breach to alter voter information or to request absentee ballots, which I think is ding, 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 the winner on that. The real threat is what can be done with the stolen data. Here's how it goes. In nearly every election jurisdiction, the information required to apply for and receive an absentee ballot is in the database. A breach can allow bad actors to access the information, name, date of birth, address, but also sensitive info like driver's license and more. That info could then enable the bad actors, like the Chinese, to request absentee ballots at scale for low propensity voters. Find people who are in the list but are not voting, and just request ballots in their names. They're not going to check. They're not going to look. Data obtained in a breach in 2021, for example, could be used to request a ballot for an election in 2028 because the data doesn't get stale. They could also, if they have access to the systems, change addresses and therefore their polling place or party affiliation to impede voting. This type of exploit could disenfranchise people and it could go unnoticed. This type of alteration of voter data could be done over time using data to update their systems, and you could log in, you could delete files, and I think that is an attack vector. But I mean, you can just change the paper size, and you have Kerry Lake voters standing outside in Arizona. So you could also back up database files. A good commitment to cybersecurity is to back these up securely offline and have a plan. If you detect unauthorized access, do something about it. Jenna Griswold, don't post your passwords on the internet. You also need to enable multi-factor authentication, okay? Text yourself a code and enter it. Enable domain-based messaging, protect and respond to DDoS attacks, distributed denial of service attacks targeting your website. Don't download and click Chinese links, okay? While not binding on non-federal entities, you should follow these plans. Patch your stuff. Use .gov domains, encrypt your files, and more. Now, over the last decades, millions of Americans have had their information stolen. We read through a whole horrifying list of it. Cyber criminals have gained access to a lot of this. In many cases, it's sold on the dark web. You can just go buy it. In July 17, a credit report firm discovered the data breach affected 143 million Americans, half the population. Began in 2017, was announced 4 months later. They got everything. Then in 2020, the DOJ indicted 4 Chinese on economic espionage. Bill Barr said the hack was a disturbing pattern. They got a bunch of info, trade secrets, and more. In 24, a background check firm that stores troves of records, including full names and socials, they suffered 2.9 billion records containing info on 170 million information. That info on the dark web being sold for $3.5 million. Tip money. That's nothing for a nation state. One of the largest supplemental insurance providers suffered a database breach in June 25. 22.65 million people all hit. That info accessed included everything that you need. Hackers gained access to everything. A report from the University of Oxford also found that the Russians and the Chinese ranked first and third as nations that pose the biggest threat of cybercrime. And all of those breaches have all of the information that is needed for voter registration and absentee ballot applications. All of it's there. You just spend 10 million bucks, gobble it all up, go apply and register with for a bunch of absentee ballots, get shipped. Oh, I'm over in China now. Ship me a ballot. This threat that this data exposed is significant. We need to recognize and mitigate this. And so voter registration, this is why we've been screaming about the list and covering all of Harmeet's cases here, are the foundation of our systems. State and local election officials must prioritize this, adopting modern security enhancements like smart network monitoring. Multi-factor authentication can help prevent this fraud and limit the risks. And all state officials are encouraged to collaborate with us on this very important mission. All of the references cited here: CISA, Justice, intelligence.senate.gov reports, Riverside County. The whole thing is just a total disaster. And I'm very happy that the president announced all of this today. I don't know exactly who will be prosecuted as a result of this, if anybody. He didn't name anybody. He didn't name the people who were ultimately at the top of all of this, who were, enabling it, like maybe Christopher Wray was, or the people specifically in the emails saying, I am massaging Trump's brief. We're going to keep this report out of it. We're going to split it up into 13 parts to undermine his access to the intelligence. Or whether this was more of an attempt to just shake loose the stupidity of Congresspeople and our fellow Americans. Why can we not agree on this? Of all the things out there, okay, you love aborting babies. That's great. I don't. We'll agree to disagree on that one. But how can you disagree with wanting to fix these problems? You want the Russians to pick your president? They screamed about that when Trump won, but they're okay with it when Biden wins. I'm not okay with it in any way at all. We don't want the Chinese, the Russians, the Iranians, or any nation states influencing our elections through influence operations or directly importing thousands of fake IDs, stealing information to create fake registrations, having the Biden DOJ cover up for Michigan ballot registration laundering schemes with hundreds of employees filling out thousands of fake registration paperwork, documents to submit. We don't want any of that. And so what is it going to take to actually get this fixed? We had literally about 100 documents that we went through here tonight, maybe less than that, maybe 70. But gobs and gobs on it. 4 main categories: vulnerabilities in election voting, China's acquisition of the names and the lists. We had Michigan and their scam that nobody investigated. Hopefully it's being investigated now. And then, of course, non-citizens on the voter rolls. But I didn't see a lot of support for that number. But anyways, my friends, it has been a very, I think, fruitful evening. Would have liked Trump to come out and drop a big fat indictment on the desk, or maybe a dozen of them, and say, here's the people who are going to jail. Because let's not forget, our own government is complicit in this. We had the CIA colluding with the Biden administration, with the incoming Biden campaign, to write a fake letter, 51 laptop letter. There were people who were still contractors who signed that letter, still contracting with the CIA. They were working for the CIA. So the CIA did it. They testified that they had actual approval from the CIA publication board before any of that went out to make sure it didn't have any problematic information in there. And they were using CIA facilities in order to write this and collude on the meetings. So our own government is involved in it. Then you've got Liz Cheney and the J6 committee deleting evidence before they turn it over to the Republicans. You've got a cover up on the extent of the federal agents that were there on January 6th, instigating the crowd, and questions about all of the actors that were there. And if you dared to challenge all of this that we all had hints about long before it was declassified today, they would go after your law license. They would try to destroy your life. And in multiple states, Jack Smith, an illegitimate prosecutor, tried to put Trump in jail, tried to prosecute people who were even challenging this. We had Fannie Willis indict 19 people in order to cover up for this. So there needs to be extensive accountability. I hope this is the start. This is the uncorking of this. One of the most common questions that we get here is, do you really think elections were rigged? There were 60 court cases and more. You can see exactly how it's being covered up. The FBI and the intelligence communities shut down any conversation about it. They hid it from the president. Then when they go to investigate the Michigan scam, they cover it up. There are no investigations. There are no inquiries. It's all one scam, and we're suffering for it. So very happy to see. Thank you, Mr. President, for delivering this. After this is digested, we're going to continue to read through these documents. I know we went through them quickly here, but there's a lot. There's a lot in there. And so hopefully some people out there who are not totally compromised and brainwashed by the mainstream media and the other, I call them the election deniers. Anybody who says our elections are perfect and there's no fraud, they're literal election deniers. They're living in la la land. Why is there fraud across every other institution in America except for elections? And if there's 1% fraud, even less than that, that is dispositive. Okay, that changes the outcome of the election in favor of your preferred candidate during close elections, if they're small margins. That's why you have to beat by the margin of fraud. But around the edges, they can win. And they can use the fraud to cheat. They're already cheating. They're already trying to change the rules. Jocelyn Benson has to be sued to revert the manual back to comply with the statutory law. Adrian Fontes in Arizona, same thing. He gets sued, he gets reversed because they try to change the rules. And so this was excellent news. Very happy to see it. Of course, we're always waiting for the handcuffs to come out and clank out of Trump's pockets. But we'll have to hold on to our butts for that. In the meantime, Congress should wake up and Start to codify electoral reform so that a lot of these problems are mitigated. Require the states to share and maintain their lists. Actually pass identification requirements so that absentee mail-in ballots or registration forms can't just be filled out with fake names, addresses, and social security numbers. We don't have a nation. And the reason a lot of people, if we don't have elections, we have people that don't want to talk about it because if they recognize how deep this problem is, if the Chinese pick our elections for us, spare us all your lecturing about democracy. Don't want to hear it anymore. If the Chinese can influence us and then our own FBI doesn't look into it and tries to pervert the reports from the CIA and the DNI to kind of water that down and then La La Land deny it when it actually happens and say, actually, we're not going to tell the president about it. It's a fiction. It's all just a big fake. It's all just a big scam. It's like we're watching shadows on the wall. We're in Plato's cave. We have no idea what the hell's going on. We don't actually have a nation. So, like, now's the time. We need Congress. We need the Republicans to stop being so feckless. You guys got to get together. You got to pass the SAVE Act. You got to do something about this. It is clearly on display. Our own IC is covering it up. Stop pretending it doesn't exist. Give us our country back so that we can actually become part of the self-governance of we the people. Thank you for joining us during this extensive night. I hope that there will be a lot more to come. We really appreciate you joining us at this late hour. It's almost midnight here on the East Coast. But now, my friends, let us hear from you. Let us see what you have to say about all of this and more. But a good night, all said and done. You know, there's always this demand for more. Got that. But we got some very good documents here today. And let's see what this one is. Yeah, and I'm curious to see what everybody else is seeing out there. Like, we just jumped right into the analysis. We didn't see what everybody else is posting about. Anybody else, like, latch on to anything that we didn't latch on to? Very curious to see that. Oh! Yeah, it's Debbie. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is here. Almost had a heart attack. That'll wake you up. If you're tired, that'll wake your ass up, man. I'll tell you right there. It gives me the shivers every time I see it. Thank you, John. All right, so what's going on? Hey, Sua Sponte says, imagine, if you will, an entire party devoted to illegals, pedophiles, trans, criminals, foreigners, and human traffickers, and election fraudsters. But, of course, the rest of us are the problem. Exactly right. Hey, Sua Sponte, Rob, I'm on a roll. Rob, as much as we want that baby to show up, let's not rush things. We have a show to do. Yeah, baby didn't come today. That's good. Because we had some declassification documents to read. You know? So very excited. Just kidding for you guys. We got baby shower coming up on Saturday, and then the baby can come anytime after that. Thank you, Sua Sponte. You're amazing. Hey, Goose Toots. What's up, Goose Toots? Thank you for becoming a supporter. Grab today's members only stream from this morning. What do we talk about? Oh, Trump is canceling. There was a Biden era rule for illegal aliens, or really non-citizens. If you're on a benefit program, Trump is saying, we're going to consider you to be a public charge. If you're getting free food, free housing, free SNAP, whatever, if the government is paying for these things, we're going to consider you a public charge. That's going to be an adverse finding for your long-term immigration process. And that's a reversal of Joe Biden's policy. Joe Biden said that he'd only make you a public charge if you're getting like cold hard cash, but SNAP, you're good. Housing, you're good. Medicaid, you're good. So Trump reversed that. We talked about that this morning, and we had another stream. I'm not another segment. I don't remember what it was. Hey, Lori Pipkin, man, this waiting is killing me, and I'm an old woman. I know. I was like, man, what are we going to get tonight? Yeah, and all of that fraud, it's not to mention like the other fraud, like the FBI and the DNI, Clapper and Brennan under Obama, they were making up the Russia collusion hoax by adding Hillary Clinton campaign propaganda to the 2017 ICA that Obama got. Like, our CIA is filled with people who are rigging it. I hope John Ratcliffe is fixing it, but it's a big entity and nobody knows what the hell's going on in any of these things. So we want justice for those bad actors. right? It's not all just like the China, like, oh, it's China doing it. We got it. It is for sure. But we've got a lot of bad actors here as well. A lot. Jeffrey Adams, I want to be number one. You are number one to us, Jeffrey Adams. Thanks for that. Hey, Lori Smith. Thank you, Lori, for the donation. You're amazing. Lori Pipkin, this senior loves Trump and, of course, Robert. Yeah, what other president would come out and reveal all of this to us? They wouldn't. In fact, they would just cover it up. Obama made it up. He took Hillary Clinton's campaign propaganda, gave it to John Brennan. They put it in the back of the 2017 ICA, lied to everybody about it, made up fake stuff. Biden did the same thing. Even before he got there, the CIA was helping him get in. And it's the same people who are there. Ratcliffe, it's one man on the Titanic. He's trying to save a sinking ship. And there's only so much you can do. So, you know what helps disincentivize that conduct? Prison. Hey, thank you. Pearl Lala in the house. Pearl Lala in the house. Thank you so much, Pearl Lala. Hey, Amuse, man. Man, good to see you, Amuse. Thanks for joining us tonight. What a great guy. Amuse, you know who he is. He's over on X. Amuse, good to see you. Great follow on X if you're not already following him. And a very nice guy, too. Thank you for the nice donation tonight, Amuse. Great to have you join us, man. Hopefully you're covering this stuff, too. Digging into the docs, as we know you like to do. Good to see you. Hey, Biology always wins. What's going on, Biology? 5 new members coming in. Great to see everybody. We got Axandio in the house. Kyle Holbrook, welcome. We got JT Dudekauser and Spider Lich in the house. Great to have you guys come in. Thank you, Biology, for bringing them in. Grab this morning's stream. We had some fun this morning. We talked a lot. We always have fun. Crazy. My youngest son is here and he got a free membership. You will love this group. I love you, baby puppy. Shout out. Hey, shout out to Baby Biology always wins. You'll always be mama's little baby and a baby puppy too. Good to see you, Biology. Shout out to your boy. Hopefully he sticks around. Great to have you. What's up? And is he in this chat? Which one is he? Is it Kyle? What's up, Kyle? Hey, Nancy Lee. Good to see you, Nancy. Thank you for the donation, Nancy Lee. One up, man. Yeah, one up. Lori Pipkin's back. Names. Name names. I know. I feel you on that big time. And at least don't redact the name of the lady who's massaging your PDBs, you know. Who is that person? The one who's going to split it up into 13 different reports and delay. And we're also really not adding anything about the election. And then you've got the main IC then trying their best to confirm that the minority position is inaccurate. Then after Biden needs to blame the Chinese and they reverse it, they say, oh, yeah, they are hacking our elections. They are influencing our elections. Yeah. I mean, it's like an act of war, honestly. And it's a total exploit of our system, which is why we have to respond to that. It's a national security matter. Lori, thank you. Hopefully names come out, man. Hopefully Congress does something about it and they don't just sit there and say, why is Jack Smith reading my text messages? Because he's a criminal. Holly, Mother's Evening Dispatch. Mother's Evening Dispatch. Thank you for rating our stream, man. Shout out to all our mothers out there. Hey, S. Sargent, what's up? 45 MAGA 47. Nice to have you. Shout out, supporter. Great to have you with us. We'll see you on the next members only morning stream, which might be early tomorrow, or it might be later tomorrow. We'll decide in the morning. Thank you, Jeffrey Adams. Your boy's got another scheduling event I got to contend with tomorrow. Jeffrey Adams, was Mitch McConnell's wife involved? Oh, you mean Chow, who went over to China when Mitch was on his deathbed? Probably. Yeah, maybe she delivered them all of the voter lists. You never know. Jeffrey Adams, make Sidney Powell, and it's not racist, okay? She went to China. Make Sidney Powell election czar. Man, that'd be great. Sidney Powell should be at least a special government employee. That would be great. King of Biltong. Hey, what's up? Biltong in the house. Did you enjoy your Biltong USA order? You better have. Please leave a review when placing your next order. BiltongUSA.com. It helps others find us and means a lot to our small business. Use code Robert, 10% off. and get your delicious meats. Good to see you, Bill Tongue, in the house. Jeffrey Adams, it's official. Bill Barr's a scumbag. Yeah, they didn't even look into it, okay? Bill Barr specifically did not even look into it. He says, not our problem. We don't run elections. Let the states do it. It's their job. Yeah, or Fang Fang, another good point. Fang Fang. Remember Eric Swalwell made Bang Bang with Fang Fang, a Chinese spy? Question about whether she actually, laundered a little bit more out of there than his dignity. But yeah, that guy became a big problem. You know who else is a problem right now? Ruben Gallego. Yeah, apparently he's boinking his staffers. Not good to do that. He got a little bit of Swalwell fever. He's like, I can be cool now. I'm a congressman, so I can sleep with my staff. Yeah, not good. Jeffrey Adams. Hey, Roscoe the Rev, 25 months as a membo. Good to have you, Roscoe. Thanks for being here for so long. Coming up on 3 babies. Yeah, who will be prosecuted first? Out of this list, I'm not sure that anybody will. Actually, out of this list, like a lot of this was about, I would say more about blaming the Chinese, shaking our election officials about how problematic this is. I think that there are major problems internally inside the CIA and the IC and the DNI and all of the agencies that we saw that are trying to massage information and hide and cover things up. But they'll just defer that back to, that's my opinion. My opinion is the Chinese are not influencing elections. It's a biased opinion. You're a partisan hack. You should be fired for it. If you covered something up or you had reason to know and then you buried that and it's your job to bring that to somebody's attention, that, might be some sort of an abuse of your office. But otherwise, I think this was just more about shaking loose the people who say our infrastructure is perfect rather than evidence that points to an overt conspiracy. I mean, there were people who covered up Michigan, right? We saw what they did, but they'll just say, oh, it's prosecutorial discretion. It's not a crime. They should be fired. They should be investigated. They should be hauled in front of Congress. They should be asked questions under oath. If they lie about those things, then they should be prosecuted for that. But it's hard. It's hard to prosecute these people. I don't know if there's a lot of will to do it. Biology, thank you for bringing in 5 more members, man. Amazing. Biology, you rock. Thank you for doing that and bringing them in here. Shout out to your baby boy. What's up? Right on cue. Good to see you, right on cue. Thank you for the fat donation. The best is yet to come for real. Yeah, and I think that there is, a foundation that needs to be set. And then I could imagine that this also opens the doors to, well, who is actually facilitating these connection with the Chinese or the Russians? Where are these lists coming from? Who's leaking these materials? Who's on the inside who is facilitating the exploitation of our system? That's a crime, obviously. But, it's all chalked up to incompetence. Like in Georgia, the election chain of custody was so perverted and problematic. We've now seized the ballots that might lead to crimes, criminal charges. It might just result in they're just, allegedly incompetent. And they just made administrative mistakes and more. But you got to lay the foundation. We have to know there's a problem before we can start to address really it's like a broad understanding of the mechanics of the problem. Then you can zoom in and figure out where the more acute problems are and then indict them. Jeffrey Adams, recall that the head of Smartmatic are Venezuelan citizens and are under arrest in Miami for election fraud in the Philippines. Yeah, I think we have that case marked up on one of our dockets. And so it would be good to follow up on that one. But yeah, Smartmatic is all in there, man. Actually helping the Venezuelans rig elections, according to those docs. Rob, was any of this in the paperwork Mike Lindell sent to President Trump after the 2020 election loss? He was recorded saying, "We got them, Mr. President." Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what was in there. I mean, I think a lot of the stuff we've known tangentially about. Like we've thought about the Chinese fake stealing. We knew about them stealing voter lists. We knew about them having IDs that worked. We know that gobs of personal information has been stolen so that they can then reverse engineer and get real ballots probably sent to them from the state and then just use those. Like, you don't even really need to have sophisticated algorithmic hacking, although you might have that. You don't even need that. You just need 50,000 votes fraudulently maintained and submitted. And we saw a whole operation in Michigan that was doing that. So I'm not sure exactly what Mike Lindell sent, but sometimes the simplest explanations are the best. Hey, JMac, Rob, love the reporting and the explanations. I learned so much. JMac, me too, my man. It really is an honor and a privilege to spend this time going through it with you. I'm so grateful that you're interested in these documents and these issues. It's like, man, I'm so happy to be with my people here and that we get to do this together. It's just really an honor. So, and I think it's so important, like so important. I believe in America. I believe in self-governance. I believe in we the people. I believe in our nation. And we can't have that if we have these problems and the Chinese are picking everything. So, JMac, thanks again for the nice donation, my man. Thank you for being here. Tony Hay Munkets, everything you're talking about and everything that has been said, we already knew Biden didn't win. We already knew that. We did know that. Yeah, we did. But this adds a little bit of backing, you know? Now we can refer to the document. So I'm looking forward to ingesting all of these appropriately. Tony Hay, we have discussed all these issues. We knew about all these issues. I just hope they can actually do something about it. That's what I've been waiting for. Release the Kraken. I know. We've been waiting for the Kraken for like 6 years now. It's there. You know, it's there. You know, the FBI, I read an article, the FBI is actually going through all of the ballots in Georgia. So if you can find that there were 12,000 ballots that were duplicate or triplicate ballots, there's going to be a lot of questions about that. You can backtrace it to the people. That's why they wanted subpoenas for all of the workers who touched the batches and processed them so that they could trace the duplicates and the triplicates back to somebody, right? That's part of the problem with our system is it's so decentralized. By design, it's actually a good thing. But because if you have one centralized system, then you could just, you know, kind of pervert the entire system and you're screwed. But now it's very decentralized and it's very inaccessible. So it's hard to prosecute people when you have an absence of access to the evidence. Yeah, but you're right, Tony. Hey, like there's been enough murmurings around this. Today, I think the highlights were there was a Chinese information and identification hack that was covered up unequivocally. They didn't want to include it. They hid it from the president. They hid it from America. They hid it from us. He's our elected representative in 2020. So they hid that from us. They covered up what happened in Michigan. We know kind of the extent of the efforts to prevent the truth on these issues from coming out because we can see the emails, we can see the documents. We knew it was going on because we're smart. We can just, you know, backfill it and just see where the problems are, but we didn't have access to the materials that now support it. Chris Dewar, Christine, Republicans better step up or get out of the way. I'm with you on that, Christine. Thanks for being here for 1 month. If you don't have the fortitude to stand up on this issue, then, and maybe they don't want to stand up on it because they're the beneficiaries of the rigging, you know, it would undermine their power. So they'll just have to age out or we'll have to just really throw them out aggressively, peacefully and politically. Doan, Raffensperger was smart enough to refuse to testify before Congress regarding Dominion. Yeah, Raffensperger's a whole different can of worms. And remember how we learned that the Senator David Perdue in Georgia asked Vic Reynolds, the GBI lead, to investigate what he saw as fraud. And then Vic Reynolds told him, specifically according to Perdue, that Brian Kemp told Vic Reynolds to stop the investigations, to be a team player. And then what did Brian Kemp do after Vic Reynolds delivered on that? Made him a judge. Higher Superior Court judge. So we got a promotion for not doing his job. Get it? Tony Hay in a cover up. Tony Hay Munkets, you talk about our problems with China. Don't say China, say the CCP. The Chinese people suffer from them too. Our enemy is the CCP, not the Chinese people. I've been to China. Yeah. I had a great time in China. I went over to China, met a lot of great Chinese people. Ate a lot of interesting foods over there. Went to Shanghai and Beijing. And I liked a lot of the Chinese people. I think a lot of the Chinese people are very in alignment with the CCP, but not all. And so that's a good distinction. Thank you, Tony Hay. We just don't like communists. Okay, so if they're Chinese and they're communists and they're big enthusiastic communists, not for us. And don't hack our elections. Randy Brandel, I urge everyone to watch Mike Lindell's Cyber Symposium after the 2020 election. They disassembled a sealed Dominion machine from a Colorado Live on stage. They explained the hardware on the circuit board and the software G-code. Yeah, that's right. I think I did see a portion of that. And they lied to us repeatedly. We went through other documents where people also had the circuit boards splayed out onto PowerPoint slides, and they walked you through this chip does this, and this chip does that. And that's a modem. That connects to the internet. Oh, that's weird because I thought the machine said they couldn't do that. Yeah, and then they're in there. So, and then in Georgia, remember you have the QR code problem. Like you select your ballot, it prints out a QR code, take the QR code, go scan it. That counts your votes. You can't read a QR code. You don't know if the machine encoded your votes into the QR code appropriately. Thank you, Randy, for the nice donation tonight. Shout out to Mike Lindell. Hopefully he's feeling more vindicated today. Shout out to all of the OG election investigators. Sidney Powell, Mike Lindell. We had many others who were on the list. I'm too tired to remember right now, but shout out to them. And the people who got abused as a result of it. A lot of people lost their licenses. A lot of people got indicted for asking questions that are reflected in these documents today. Lawyers lost their licenses. Jeffrey Clark, many others. Tony Hay Munkets, man, thanks for bringing in some more membos today and for the clarity on the CCPers. What's up? Jan Harper's here. Eric with a K, welcome. Sharon Sunshine saying what's up. Pastry Mason, we got Pokey Texan and Mark Hazley in the house. Man, thank you for those. Our friend Tony Hay Munkets. Hey, it's the Munkets. What's up? Mustard Seed. Look at Lou Dobbs, 2006, CNN reporting on Smartmatic based in Venezuela and voting machines putting democracy at risk. Help America Vote Act is also discussed. Yeah, that's interesting. And man, rest in peace to Lou Dobbs. He was on that too, right? Shout out Mustard Seed. Yeah, a lot of good remembering down memory lane where a lot of this stuff was vindicated today and tonight. Hey, WC Racehorse Rescue. Shout out to rescuing the racehorses. Would Executive Order 13848 apply to this? Biden did not revoke it. I don't even know what that one is. Throwing these numbers at me. 13848 Executive Order. Would it apply? National emergency to declare a threat of foreign interference in U.S. elections, mandates an intelligence assessment, and allows the imposition of sanctions like blocking property and financial assets if you're involved in election interference. Here is what it says. Within 45 days, DNI must conduct an assessment. Interference is broadly defined. Sanctions can be imposed. Yeah, I think it would apply. I mean, if that's still in effect, I do think it would apply. And what is the line? Like, do you just let the Chinese do it? Is it just something you just say, well, everybody does this. You know, we don't really do it over there because they don't really have elections. But what do? Do you go to war with China? Do you issue, 200% sanctions on them or something? They'll just have plausible deniability on this. They'll continue to influence. They'll continue to exploit their bought-off senators and more. What are we going to do? This is why it really is like a national emergency. The whole of government, even the useless, people in Congress just need to get their heads together and solve it. Tabitha Herunyan. In Michigan, Whitmer is best friends with China. That makes sense to me. There was a lot of problems up there, and seems like her office stepped in there to prevent a full investigation. Yeah, what do you just cut off all trade? Like America suffers economically because we get a lot of cheap crap from China. You just cut them off. No more rare earth minerals coming in from China. You just end it. Cut off the sugar high of cheap Chinese goods. What do? Airborne professor, do you actually think anyone will be charged? I don't think as a result of what we saw here today. I mean, maybe the Michigan fraudsters will be charged, but it sounds like they couldn't work their way up the chain there. Like even in the documents that we read through quickly, did they identify the boss of that scam? I don't think so. Like who formed the LLC? Was there an LLC? Are there people at the top of this? Or was it just kind of like a cash operation with debit cards that were rechargeable? And maybe there is no higher up person. So you're going to go charge all these canvassers? Okay, but that's, you really want the people who are the masterminds behind this thing. So you got to work their way up. Find the people at the top. Of all the documents that we read today, those are, I think, are going to be the most likely people to be charged. But anybody who has non-citizens on their voter rolls, they're just going to say, oh, it's just, we're a big, dumb bureaucracy. We can't maintain our list because we're secretaries of California, Shirley Weber, But, yeah, okay, so here you go. So other than that, I mean, I don't think a whole lot from this one. Do you actually think anyone will be charged? Probably not as a result of these documents, other than the Michigan people. Tabitha, hey, Benson already put out a press release that Trump is lying. Yeah, she would do that. She's maybe the worst secretary of them all. Shirley Weber is bad, but it's California. The whole system's bad. Jocelyn, Michigan is not lost, but under her stewardship, it is. And she wants to be governor now because she's rigged it hard enough that she knows she can ascend into higher office. So Jocelyn is a hack. And that is exactly what she would do. I think that we're going to see more fallout from this tomorrow. Mark Elias is going to have to put the donuts down, and he's going to be very mad when he does. Tabitha, what's going on? Thank you for the dono. Handy News, man. Thank you, Handy News, for raiding the stream. You're amazing. Shout out to our Handy News friends. And Dark Severiant in the house. Please like the stream. Emoji of Melania. Man, thank you, Dark, for that one. And yeah, thank you, friends, for liking this one, because there's some juicy bits in here. Hey, more here. Bringing in 10 more here, man. Thank you, more here. Fourth Wall Dragon. What's up, Montana Deb? Ninja Nears. We got David Shelton. What's up, DAG? Hua Quita. We got 206 Babe, Dan Powers, and Lucky Red 10 in the house. Gifted membos, courtesy of More Here, bringing in 10 more here. Hey, Big Bats, what's going on? Thank you for the dono over on Rumble, Big Bats. Rob, first, I would like to thank you for explaining this for an average guy. How does this affect those lawsuits against the voting machines? Weren't people sued over them, like Mike Lindell, etc.? Yeah, so Mike, I think, just had his case dismissed, right? They entered a settlement, or I think Dominion dismissed his lawsuit. So I'm not sure if there's a whole lot of active litigation going on, but I think Mike Lindell had his case dismissed. So that one specifically, I think I read that. Don't think we covered it here too extensively, but I think it was dismissed courtesy of an agreement between him and Dominion. Dominion changed hands in terms of ownership, and so that got dumped, if I'm remembering that right. So that's good news. And I think, let's say litigation is still continuing on, then it would support his defense, right? If they're saying, you defamed us, you talked badly about our business, you were making up stuff. They say, no, I'm not. Here's what the CIA said about your crap machines, okay? So dismiss your lawsuit. And I don't think that's the reason they dismissed it, but it is good news nonetheless. Triggered Harambe. Rob, how do you keep calm through all of this? Did I see calm tonight? I didn't feel very calm. Felt like my blood pressure was about to burst through my ears. Just sitting here reading all of this. It's like these people are supposed to work in the interest of America. They see a foreign nation that's muddling around. Wouldn't your default status be, if you have a question about China interfering or China not interfering, wouldn't the more prudent plan and chain of action to be to default to China interfering? We're not positive, but they could be, and so we should act accordingly, rather than They're not. And they've got no intention to. Why would you ever trust their intention? We haven't seen evidence of intent. Okay. Could their intent change? Maybe you shouldn't give America's like number one geopolitical enemy in the world, or maybe not enemy, but adversary in the world, the benefit of that doubt, and then adjust your intelligence guidance to do the opposite of what is prudent. It's wild. It's like you should just be fired and laughed out for that. Like your job is like national security, and you're like, Chinese said they're not going to do anything. So let's go do something else, like go after some Catholics or some pro-lifers somewhere. Triggered Harambe. Yeah, I don't feel very calm about it, but thank you for saying that we're coming across that way. Effie, what's going on, Effie, man? Thank you for the nice lemon with the leaf on the head. We appreciate that. Thank you for being a member as well. Amazing to have you here. Thanks for joining us. And for the nice donation, Dones Co., what's up? Hey, we need to call out media sedition. The media is scum too. I think they're largely just cutouts of the intelligence agencies. But I think large portions of them were not even covering it, right? And I was trying to pull that feedback up. But I don't know if anybody's covering it right now. Let's see, news channels. Let's see what we got. Yeah, look at these pieces of work. All right, so here's what the cables are showing us right now. Trump casts blame on China for election data. They just had something different. Trump talks election security and potential Dem wave. Did he say that? U.S. launches more strikes on Iran, over from BBC. And CNN just changed that chyron. It was just something else. But all right, that's what's happening out there. All right, so we got, thank you, Donsko. Yeah, the media is terrible. There were, I think, 2 of them did not even carry the speech because they're cowards. They don't want to address the facts on their face. These are documents. Trump didn't type these up. Okay, Trump didn't say that he needed to have his information massaged out of him or something. That was them. It's in writing. Thank you, Donsko. Hey, Sandy, we have a 5-year statute of limitations. We need a date proving cover-up later than 2021. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Generally speaking, yeah. This is why we have problems prosecuting Comey. His SOL has expired. Same thing. I think Brennan's up on that too. Although, didn't he retestify again? So they can just call them back into Congress. Congress can call them back in, sit their butts down, ask them the same questions, watch them lie under oath again, or plead the fifth, and then indict them. But Sandy, the other alternative, which is why I think the grand conspiracy case is now being investigated down out of South Florida, is to make it a conspiracy case. Then in conspiracy, if there's an overt act that is a cover-up of the conspiracy, even predating the cap on the SOL, statute of limitations, that can extend the conspiracy. You call it an ongoing conspiracy. And the most recent overt act relates all the way back to the first act. So Brennan and Clapper and Comey can all go down for their 2016 rigging and their 2017 ICA and their fake reports over to Biden. But yeah, I mean, this is the problem. Like, we've got the clock is ticking. We got to go. Off-label podcast. Hey, how is America so stupid? Well, we're not stupid, but we have some very stupid leaders and corrupt leaders. Easy. For a decade, we had the media telling them to listen only to them as they lied constantly. An entire generation grew up in a lie. Yeah, it's like the Matrix, okay? Many people in the government are perfectly happy, and many people in America are perfectly happy in Plato's cave. Happy to watch the shadows on the wall as long as it makes them feel good. Going outside is too bright. They have to wake up and escape the Matrix, and they can see things that are scary and harmful. And oh no. So at least if they're shackled down in the pit, they've got a sense of reliability. They know what it's going to be. And they don't want to feel like they're living in an environment where their government is lying to them or where they don't actually have their best interests at heart. I saw some clip from Shenna Bellows. They're talking to their voters like they're 5 years old. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. It's like, what are you saying? Let me see if I can find this. And she was on with Jake Tapper. One of the most pathetic, I think there was a debate or something tonight. One of the most pathetic things I've ever seen. I hope I can find this. She talks like a child to her voters. And it is by design. It's like just to placate them, just to make them think that they're safe and they're being cuddled. And here, let's listen to this. I haven't watched this one. Let's see what Shanna has to say out of Maine.
I dropped out last night. I had some serious conversations with my family. And today I launched a campaign for the U.S. Senate because there is so much at stake. We must win control of the U.S. Senate in November, and the path to the U.S. Senate runs through Maine. And what's at stake is standing up to Donald Trump, protecting our neighbors, passing Medicare for all, and fighting for the working class people and holding big corporations and billionaires accountable. So I'm prepared to do it. I've been reaching out to grassroots activists. This is a people-powered.
Okay, so that's not good. It's not bad. I mean, it's bad, but it's not like as bad. It was like Bellows and Tapper. Shanna Bellows and Tapper. I couldn't believe it when I was listening to it. I'm like, this lady's an idiot. And it's like a lowest common denominator type of language. I can't find it. Anyways, that's what happens when I try to catch it on a live stream. But I should have clipped it. But it's just, it's wrapping their voters in bubble wrap. And it's pathetic. It's really shameful. Anyway, Sandy, I know you don't like to click on links, but this one is a .gov link. And here's the PSA dated 2024. The cover-up is still happening. Just so you know, false claims of hacked voter information likely intended to sow distrust in U.S. elections. Yeah, so we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't. If we complain about elections, then I guess we're just buying into propaganda that's submitted by the foreign people, like the Russians or the Chinese, seeking to sow discord in our election. So we shouldn't complain. We shouldn't ask about it. We shouldn't investigate it so that they can just do it without us buying into their propaganda. So they can just steal the elections right from under our noses. Rick D, they caught that many. How many got through that they didn't catch? Same as the gotaways at the border under Biden. Exactly. Yeah, you're talking about the tens of thousands of other ballots that were not caught. They caught 8 to 10,000, but there are many more. Chat with me. So then when I show my ID to vote after the SAVE Act is enforced, how is my ID different to the China ones being used? Can't they both still be used with the SAVE Act? Yeah, I mean, I think that if you have stricter validation, so you register to vote, you're not registering like we saw in Michigan, where they just fill out fake names and fake IDs, fake socials, fake numbers. I would imagine there's a bunch of fake people on Michigan's rolls that are all in there getting ballots. So if you have ID, you have a real ID, then that real ID can be cross-referenced. Maybe the states, are actually checking them against the federal database before it actually hits the roll. So then, I think you might still have a problem. If the Chinese hack all of that data, then they could really submit a false request for an absentee ballot. But even if you, let's say, added in your, when you go and mail in your ballot and you have even let's say there was a requirement to mail a copy of your ID in with your ballot, something like that. Then all of these ballots that are sent out to everybody, you'd have to match that with an ID so that you can't really harvest ballots. The example that I've used to explain, it's hard to kind of explain this in the abstract, but I would get ballots of a dead guy to my house. Currently, I could just kind of sign it and send it back in. Signatures are hardly even checked, so it would count. But if I had to also put a copy of my ID in the mail-in ballot, I would not have his ID. So then I would mail that back in without his ID. It wouldn't be counted. He'd have to cure that. So, yeah, I think it's less garbage going in It's more validation at the time of voting. So you're actually presenting an ID. And so I don't think it's going to eliminate all the fraud, but it's going to eliminate, I think, a huge portion of it. Rather than what we currently have, where you can register with fake names and numbers, and apparently they just ship them in Michigan. Hey, Sharpie guy, Rob, first of all, great coverage. Whoever they are need to be punished. Please add all of this up synopsis-wise. Way past my bedtime, but I'm too angry to rest now. P.S. I don't need to stand guard to skip. Says, please tell us why the blank blanks get to be redacted. Seems since we are the citizens of the USA, they deserve zero privacy right. Yeah, so there's a lot of election fraud. Our intelligence agencies redact a bunch of things, and we don't get to see it because they have some national security justification, or it will reveal internal sources or methods. But our election systems are problematic. Red Alert. Hey, thank you, Red Alert. Fantastic job tonight, Rob. Thank you. Thank you, Red Alert. I appreciate that. Thank you for being here and joining us. Hopefully you get some tremendous rest tonight. Hey, what's the status of the Dominion case in Georgia? Good question, Doan. I'm not sure about that one at the moment, or which one you're referencing. When we think about Georgia, we've been thinking about the voter registration list that Harmeet is suing over. And we've been thinking about the pallets full of ballots cases, which the ballots are in the hands of the FBI. So that's currently still being investigated. But Dominion, I'm not sure. I'll have to check on that one. Good to see you, Doan. Stephanie Lugo. Debbie's face is bad. And Robert, you should have seen your face. Well, it's like a shocking thing. Anytime Wasserman Schultz pops up here, it's like, you've seen something just very traumatic. Thank you, Stephanie. Good to see. Hopefully I didn't look like her, because that would just be wow. Hey, Kathy Chenette, John Solomon said a lot more docs are coming. Let's go. John Solomon would know. Yeah, he would know. He may have been responsible for helping to identify these documents. That's great news. Shout out to John Solomon. Chat with me. Seems to me the documents uncovered more about the illegal shadow government than proven election interference. The interference was inferred, but no direct facts of election fraud. Am I wrong? Was this setting up the conspiracy? Well, I think that the CIA, the intelligence communities were saying that they had a subsource that said that subsource was reporting on the Joe Biden fraud. That, I think, was pretty direct evidence. They said a subsource said that they were bringing in fake IDs in order to make fake registrations in order to flip the election to Biden. Like, that was in there. That was part of their conversation back and forth. Then the shadow government absolutely jumped in and limited that conversation from going anywhere. They basically recalled it and kind of like capped that out. But the underlying reason that the shadow government was acting is because they had something that many people there thought was credible. Other than that, like, there was actual election interference happening by whoever was running the Michigan registration scam. Who was doing that? Was that the Chinese, or was that some Democratic outfit? They were registering fake people to get ballots or to request absentee or to do something with them to interfere with the election illegally. So, and then once again, the shadow government popped up to stop that from happening. Then you have all of the other influence, and influence matters, right? The Chinese influencing things is also a big deal. And then they said that they're not influencing. It's just issues. They're just talking about the issues, and they have free speech. So I think, like, you're definitely looking for like the smoking gun. I don't think we have a smoking gun exactly here, but there's a lot of additional threads to pull, and it's part of a much broader narrative that our elections are not the most safe and secure. Very clearly, they're not. And hopefully that sparks some reform. Rub some dirt on it. Hey, nice deep dive this evening, Rob. Good warm up for the late nights in the near future with Harambe Agamemnon Gouveia. It's got a good ring to it, man. See, Rub Some Dirt is coming around on it. Hey, there's Blood Moon. Remember, that's my nickname, Blood Moon, because I took a picture of a blood moon one time, and like my only astronomy photo that I've ever taken. Good to see you. Rub some dirt on it. Thanks for being here, my man. Great to see you. Hopefully you're still capturing beautiful images of the night sky. And Zoni Tulos, what's up? Best show on the internet, man. Thank you so much, man. Thank you, Zuno Tulos. That's a real nice compliment. We try to deliver here, but you know, there's a lot of good shows out there. Thank you for being here for 4 months. You're amazing. Tony, hey, I just wanted you to know I didn't meet you specifically. I meant everybody. The CCP is our enemy, not China. It's fair. It's very fair. Separate the government from the people. The government and the people are not usually one and the same. There's, you want to leave some room there. Chat with me from Harmeet Dillon. Excited to launch the joint DOJ Homeland Election Integrity website, an interactive map showing what actions the federal government is taking to improve election security, transparency, and integrity for all Americans, updated regularly. That's great news. Yeah, that's great news. There's so much out there, so many problems. And it will be good to have like a master repository for all of it. That's great news. Thank you, chat with me. Shout out to Harmeet. 10 tigers. Hi, Robert. Say 10 tigers one time for me. What's up, 10 tigers? Or is it tente second half gers? Got to be careful on that one. 10 tigers 99, I think is the right way to say it. Thanks for the dono, my friend. Lori Ipion Tech. Smith-Munt Act rescinded by Obama allows propaganda against Americans. Yeah, well, we're getting hit with a heavy dose of that every single day. Do you trust the science? No, we don't. Get out of our faces. Do one thing good today. Thank you for going through the documents, Rob. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for being here for 11 months. Do one good thing today. Do one thing good today in the house. Great to have you. Thanks for being here for 11 months. And do one thing good today. Bringing in 5 new member friends. What's going on? SMV Veritas. We got Imes Too Much. We got Editor TMS Turber. We got Shoot the Moon. All gifted members courtesy of Do One Thing Good Today. Chat with me. What's up? I wonder if part of the redactions were so the people who were blacked out know they've been caught and might act as witnesses in court cases in exchange for leniency. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. I mean, you could also name them and then just indict them. And then they'll start to want to cooperate pretty quickly if they want to flip on other people. So one way to handle it, they may still be working through a lot of this. Like these are very deep, I think, issues. So they're probably digging into it. Hey, Daryl, what's up? Incoming baseless claims without evidence that Trump is lying about this. I know. He's making this stuff up. It's all a conspiracy theory. He released like 55 documents about it. So just read those. Don't even have to. Do you trust the documents? They came from the CIA and other agencies. Hey, Dean. Yeah, Rob, Dominion dropped the suit. Smartmatic still has $1 billion lawsuit. And Trump-appointed judge in D.C. is currently fining Mike Lindell $500 a day because he won't lie and say the machines are safe. I did not know that. All right. Yeah, thank you for that heads up. They're not safe. Mike Lindell vindicated today. He should send that PDF that we read right into their courtroom. We'll have to look that one up. Thanks for the heads up there. Nacho Mama. What's up, Nacho Mama? In the house. 23 months. You're amazing. We appreciate all that time with you. Thank you for all of your hard work, Rob. Thank you, Nacho Mama. It's really a privilege. It's really an honor. We got through it today, man. There's some good stuff to dig into. And I think it's just going to be the planting of the seedlings that will blossom into something much more sufficient. Lori Pipkin. Also, the votes would be counted earlier. The votes would be counted earlier from Lori Pipkin. If they get them in like absentee or early ballots. Interesting. From Lori Pipkin. Yeah, good stuff. Okay, so friends, thank you so much for sending all of that over. Jim, are you doing a stream right now? Jim tells you he's going to be streaming right now? Man, you got a late night ahead of you, my man. Although, I guess it's only, 9 o'clock there on the West Coast? The night is young, no doubt. Friends, thank you for sending all of that in. Really appreciate the support. Really, thank you for being here on this very important night. I think we got some good clarity on what was released. And we got some comments. Barry, I hope the song plays after this. I think it's working today. Hey, Wakita Banana, thank you for reviewing this tonight. You're the best. And I love Amuse. Shout out to our friend Amuse. He's great. He's on X. Make sure you're giving him a follow. Amuse. Barry, I'm still here. Humble satellite boy. This is community organizing. Yeah, in action. And let me guess, our tax dollars are somehow paying for all of the refillable cards the voter registration fraudsters are getting? Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's probably some sort of Leering Center program that is funding all of that. Some of these analysts are clearly partisan. I wonder how many are literal Chi-Com assets, though. I would guess it's not insignificant. There's probably something going on there. Rob, we knew something was wrong, even the Chinese crap, but this goes even deeper. Holy cow. Says, I left an update on Caleb, but now I can't find it. I talked with his grandmother. He's going to the Chapel Hill every week doing experimental cancer drugs. He's in good spirits, eating homemade broth and tomato soup with grilled cheese. That sounds great. Third week into it. Thank you, Watcher fam. And, no launch today. Those all came over from Barry. Awesome stuff. So, all right, friends, we'll pause here on the night. It's been a beautiful evening. Thank you for all the great questions. Thank you for all the super chats, the donations, the memberships, and more. Let's see if we got any other final comments on X, and then we'll close it out on the evening. And I'm sure there'll be a lot to follow up on tomorrow because we flew through those documents with vigor. Let's see. Any other comments on X? What's up, John Reese saying what's up over there? We have Jack Hudler. Hey, man, thank you, guys. This sounds good. Al Holman, outstanding work. Thank you, Al. Thanks for joining us. Philly Mama, what's going on? Nick Flores admits we're running a shadow government. Like, what are you doing? 616, we need the link to the episode you did on the Michigan BS. Oh, man, I would just look them up. Like, we've covered so much election fraud. Like, from the beginning. We were here live on November 2020. We finished the live stream. We're like, well, looks like Trump won. Congratulations, everybody. Another 4 years. Wow. Went to bed. Next morning, wake up. All the F curves. Whoop, 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 whoop. Just like what happened to Spencer Pratt. We woke up, happened everywhere. What the hell happened last night? Oh, yeah, a water main break in State Farm. Yeah, we remember. So we've been on it for years, man. We've been on it for years. Hey, Bear Beauty body painting. What's going on? Democrats, it's Russia. Republicans, it's China. Could it be that both of them are just cheating against each other and blaming the boogeyman? I think there's a reading of that, yeah. And it may just be the CIA, you know. Josephine, your reading through and interpreting for us lady people is excellent. I'm livid about these people and what they've done. Arrests, charges, trials, convictions, and penalties are certainly in order. Love that energy, Josephine. Amazing. Chaos Smoker, unverified ballot, mail-in ballots for Biden flooded the 2020 election. Fake names, addresses. All these mail-in ballots go out. Mail-in ballots arrived at bad addresses, empty apartment buildings, charities, homeless shelters. Pick them up, vote them, and they get counted. Yeah, the people getting paid to fill out the fraudulent ballots had to show ID to get the job. Presumably. Yeah, presumably they did. John Reese, what's up? And of course, Neuro D in the house. Bringing in our link to our watchingthewatchers.locals.com members only community. And of course, you can join that on YouTube as well. We've got a presser at 11 a.m. tomorrow. Let's see where Homeland is. DHS.gov. Tune in tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern. 250,000 non-citizens illegally registered to vote in just 4 states alone. Crazy. Only Americans should be electing American leaders. Thank you, Mark Wayne. Tune in tomorrow, 11 a.m. Good news. All right, cool. Well, we will be back tomorrow. Your boy's got something I got to handle in the morning, so I'm not sure that we'll be back at our normal time in the morning, but we will be back here tomorrow to get into it again, and we're excited to do that. And so once again, friends, thank you for hanging with us so long this evening and for going through this very important stuff. Ziggy, thank you, Ziggy, for squeezing this one in. Thank you, Ziggy, for the final donos and for being here and joining us as we navigate this stuff. Kathy Chinette also here. DHS Presser, 11 a.m. Let's go. Yeah, so there'll be a lot of additional processing on this information. And if John Solomon is also accurate, and he usually is, they'll continue to release stuff. And the foundation has been laid. I hope many Americans saw this. And we have to keep talking about it. We have to keep sharing it with people. You know, these things happen. You know, there are intelligence agents doing these things. Tony, hey, Munkets, we all knew they cheated. And then they try to put Trump in prison for the next 4 years on trumped-up charges, pun intended. Yeah. Yeah, and they needed an exit plan, right? So the fraud happens, they create J6, then they prosecute the president, and they smear anybody who talks about it to disincentivize any questioning about the election. It did not work for them. We reelected President Trump. We asked for these reforms. We asked for this information, and we got it. So another delivery from the president. It's good news. We're going to keep our eye on this. I think it's going to hopefully snowball down the mountain until it turns into a big, gigantic, massive ball of justice. And it plows right through John Brennan's front door, peacefully and patriotically, you know? All right, so once again, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a lovely stream, really an honor to go through all this stuff with you, and it's all to save America. That's why we need that act passed. All right, so we'll pause here. Big thank yous to our amazing mods and memesmiths. Donut Mind Me. We got Muffin Rando in the house. Thank you to John. We got K-Bean, of course. We got Neuro D, Janek Dog Digger, our friends over on Rumble. Thank you for joining us. We have Geegum Geegum, our Doc Master Elliot, and Just Rhonda, purveyor of fine emojis, keeping things nice and orderly around here. And once again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking this video on the way out. And thank you for resting easy tonight, knowing the truth is coming out and justice will be coming soon, we hope. But get some good rest, have peaceful, pleasant, beautiful dreams, and come on back here tomorrow to join us again, because in order to do all of this appropriately, we need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night. Sleep very well. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers, truth on our side. Watching the watchers, we won't be denied. Watching the watchers, eyes open wide. Fighting for freedom with nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news, but here we see through